Surf Coast and the Bellarine Peninsula, and we will see plenty of all of that today. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Beretta. Welcome to the 2019 Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race, and the ladies have just got underway. This is the Deakin University Elite Women's Race, just leaving the line under race control. So at the moment, the race director, Scott Sunderland, has them behind him in race neutral until they roll out of Geelong, and they will begin to race full on very, very shortly. But it is a magnificent day in Geelong. 26 degrees, the expected top. It's 23 right now, and that's a big drop from the last couple of days, which have been in the mid-40s, so a huge relief for the girls today. Already here on this course, we've seen 4,000 people take part in the Swiss People's Ride, a magnificent event today. That's just finishing up at the other end of the course, and right now we are watching the Deakin University Elite Women's. Some big names, some of the biggest names in world women's road racing. 15 teams represented. No woman has won this event more than once in its 5-year history. Today, could we change all that? All the big guns are there, so let's get to the action as we join Juan Antonio Fletcher, a veteran of 11 grueling Paris-Roubaix, a Tour de France stage winner, and along with him, Robbie McEwen, Kate Bates and Matt Keenan.
The race is just about ready to get started. The peloton, which is 90 strong, they've made the left-hand turn out of the Botanic Gardens. They are waiting for the flag to come in from the race director, Scott Sunderland. And Scott Sunderland knows exactly what to expect out on the course today, because he was part of the Swiss People's Ride, but he didn't get to do the whole ride. He just did the early part of it, then he had to head back and get the job underway. Kate, the women all milling up around that car. Not a lot of wind today, unlike we've seen on previous editions of this race, but lots of riders anxious to get in that early breakaway.
I snuck into the start tent when the girls were sitting down, the calm before the storm, if you will, before they headed out on course.
The flag is waved. It's now officially underway. This is Erin Keneally up towards the front from the Gusto Step Forward KOM team. And just behind her, Kate, the Australian National Road Champion, the 18-year-old Sarah Gigante.
I think she's a little bit nervous. Sarah, she's such a talented young rider, but this is her first international senior elite women's race, and before the beginning, well, she had a few nerves and she looked a little bit terrified, if I'm honest. A lot of the other riders were sitting quite calm and cool and having a bit of a joke, and Sarah, quite frankly, looked like she'd seen a ghost. And I said to her, you'll be okay out there. And you know, I think that she feels the weight of that jersey already. It's a big responsibility to do your first international race in the Champions jersey.
Robbie, it is a big step up, going from riding against other athletes that she knows well into an international peloton where there's lots of unfamiliar faces.
It is definitely a very big step up. She's just 18 years of age. She has immense talent. She won that national championships not so long ago, just a couple of weeks ago. But I think here in this race, they're taking a bit of pressure off her. They'll give her a role as more a team helper for the more experienced riders in the team. So I think she'll have a good day out.
Let's now take a look at the course map. It's 113 kilometres in total, Kate.
And the peloton will head out of Geelong on the wide, flat roads out toward Barwon Heads. And the winds can sometimes play a role, but it's quite calm today. When they hit 13th Beach Road, though, down on the coast, well, things will get real as they head into the first sprint of the day in Torquay, down to Bells Beach and a right-hand turn for the Queen of the Mountain. They'll scoop back towards Geelong, and they've got a hard course ahead of them with the steep climb up Chalumbra Crescent, a divisive part of the race, and a quick run into the finish.
And that final climb, it comes with around about 6 kilometres to go, so it does provide an opportunity for the strong climbers to go solo, as we've seen in the past. Here are some of the favourites. Chloe Hosking, the defending champion. Spratt has won here before. Mormon Passio is very strong. Molseed, former Australian road champion. Rachel Neyland, she's won this race before.
She won here in the first year in 2015, and this year she comes in on incredible form. She was third place at the Tour Down Under just last week, but 7-time Finnish champion Lotta Lepisto. She was sick for Tour Down Under, but she has been training hard. She won the race 0 toward Melbourne the other day. She's clearly got her form back. And if it comes down to a sprint, Robbie, I think that she could be the danger.
She definitely could. But look at number 126, Ruth Winder, the American athlete. She's been second in this race behind none other than Annemiek van Vleuten 2 years ago, and she has the credentials uphill to go with just about anybody in this race, so she's one to watch.
A lot of people classify second behind Annemiek van Vleuten as an almost win. She's been the dominant female rider for the last couple.
Which is why I wanted to mention it, because that is a high quality second place.
This is Rebecca Wysack up towards the front, who's got the white colours on as part of the quarter meant the real estate Australian national team. And Kate, she's got one white sleeve and one sleeve with the bands around it, the Australian national champion. And now we see the Australian champion, Sarah Gigante. She's got the two bands with the green and gold colours.
Well, and that's the way that you can distinguish, on this occasion, the national champions jersey, Rachel Neylan, with the blue helmet in that quarter meant the national team kit as well. Rebecca Wysack, she's been world champion on the track in the individual pursuit. She's currently national criterium champion. She's got a big job today, because with Rachel Neylan potentially able to step up, and Emily Roper as well she's going to patrol the front of the bunch. Expect to see her face quite a lot.
Just looking at the peloton, the way they took off when the flag came in from the race director's car, fairly calm, telling me it's a headwind, but they're approaching the first right-hand turn, 90 degrees, and there's a bit more intensity in this peloton. So even though there's not much wind, it's a south-southeast at around 16 to 18 kilometres an hour. Everybody is wary, because in the past, it has happened in this next section. It's split to pieces. Not much wind, but that's still enough to make them nervous.
Well, they were a bit nervous before the start, and one of the reasons, Robbie, is because there wasn't much wind, but they don't just want to drag the riders around for a sprint finish, and so they're all looking at each other, knowing the likelihood of an early break and an early attack going, and wanting to make sure they position their team and their riders in the best spot to be able to be part of that and not miss the action and have to chase.
And Robbie, with these wide open roads, it provides everybody with a chance to move up towards the front. And we've just seen the colours of Rebecca Wysack. One moment ago she was at the front, she's now drifted all the way down to the back.
It's the telltale sign of a track rider. You know, a rider who will either be on the front or the back. But Sarah Gigante, I don't think will be too different today, because she is a little bit nervous about riding in a field of 90 at this level. She may go in an early break, because that would really suit her style. That's how she won her national title.
She's got another 110 kilometres to get used to it. At the front now, we've seen the orange colours of CCC Live, and they have one of the big favourites in Ashley Moore-Monpasio.
They're a really strong team. In the Towards Zero race, Melbourne, that was around Albert Park Lake on Thursday, we saw that squad come to the front, really try and put the pressure on in the crosswind, and don't be surprised if we see the same this afternoon.
Peloton now on their way towards Geelong Racecourse in Breakwater. That's on their right-hand side. As you can see, the pace is on. This is going to be a fantastic race. Hope you're enjoying it. This is part, of course, of Cadel Evans' legacy, something that he wanted to leave in the town where he spent so much time training for his great success. And this women's race means a lot to him, and he has big hopes for it for the future.
Women's race has been so successful. It's been such an exciting race from start to finish every year. I thought they'd hate us for putting in Shillambra, but they actually loved it. It's been just everything I hoped for and so much more. Women's cycling's so undercatered for. I think if we can just cater to it, they take care of the rest. And all the participants have been so great. They're so happy to come, and they're so grateful for the race. Of course, as a race organiser, that's great. But I think we've done together so much for their sport, and I'd like to think we're working towards the future for women's cycling. Of course, we'd love to have the women's race as a World Tour race as well. Let's see how women's cycling is developing, progressing. We want to be part of the growth of the sport, and I think when the time comes, we deserve to be at the World Tour level when the time is right, and hopefully that time is soon. Until we're there, it's great to be able to have this opportunity for the Australian women. It gives an opportunity for these riders, and a lot of the Australian riders are so fit at that time of year that even if they are going against the world's best, they can really hold their own.
A comfortable hour's drive from Melbourne. Geelong has so many gems to enjoy. The waterfront, Eastern Beach Pool, the Cunningham Pier, just quiet spots to relax. Of course, the Royal Geelong Yacht Club, something always happening there. And then there is this coastline. The gateway to the Great Ocean Road, some magnificent beaches we'll be enjoying later on today. Great names like Torquay, Bells Beach, and this great stadium, GMHBA, home of the Mighty Cats. Nothing in the world beats the Great Ocean Road, and that's where these ladies will be headed. We are underway with the Deakin University Elite Women's Race. The bunch is together at the moment. They are heading through the outskirts of Geelong at the moment. And our Jackie Felgate has been out and about checking out the route now. She has very wisely opted not to go on the bike, given her location. She is checking out the infamous Shillambra climb.
It's little wonder these riders are just a tad puffed. They're almost finished the 115-kilometre Swiss People's Ride, and this is Sholumbra Hill, the toughest part of the race. It's a 900-metre climb, and at its worst, over a 20% gradient, and the women will be flying up here later this afternoon. Tomorrow, though, you can come up here to Sholumbra Hill, and there'll be food trucks, there'll be activities. It is the perfect place to gather to watch the men's race. But let's just say, I'll be taking an easier route. I'll be walking up here.
Jack, very wise. That was Hamish Blake, by the way, just went past the back there. Very keen cyclist. He was out on the road in the Swiss People's Ride, along with Cadel himself. Maxie Gawn from the Melbourne Football Club was there. Patrick Dangerfield was out on the road today. And Alex Johnson, too, former Swan, amongst many others, just testing themselves on the course that these ladies are on at the moment. It is very, very challenging. So let's take you back out to the action now as we rejoin Juan Antonio Fletcher, who's out on the motorbike. The Tour de France stage winner joins our team this year. And along with him, Robbie McEwen, Kate Bates and Matt Keenan.
On Barwon Heads Road as they head down towards the first of the intermediate sprints on today's race. The hometown of Cadel 1120 is based in Australia. 106.5 kilometres to go. It's been surprisingly calm by comparison to previous editions of this race. It's the Gusto Step Forward KOM team that is down at the front of the peloton. In amongst them is a man who is famous as a Spaniard, a country known for its climbers, has been a man for the cobblestones of Paris-Roubaix. Juan Antonio Fletcher, you're down there amongst it. What's the mood feel like in the peloton?
Hello, Mark. Well, for the moment, everything's nice and calm. As you just said, it's a calm before the storm because now they're riding onto the headwind. But that's going to be sure because as soon as they head close to the surf coast, to the shore, the wind is going to change direction. It is blowing, and definitely the heat will be on as well.
You can see the smile on Juan Antonio's face. He likes the idea of the heat being on. Robbie, you raced against Juan Antonio a lot. One of the incidents that he's most famous for was on stage 9 of the Tour de France in 2011 when he and Johnny Hugeland were run off the side of the road and ended up in the barbed wire. They both made it to the finish line and they both got awarded the most combative on that stage.
Famous or infamous. It was quite an incident that went completely viral on the internet, those riders crashing into the barbed wire. Unfortunately, he's also famous for plenty of good results on the bike, and no less than 5 times in the top 5 at Paris-Roubaix, 3 podium appearances. So we see a problem here for number 51, but getting back underway. That's Annette Barrera from the Swappet team, so she'll get back into the peloton. Still riding into that headwind, as Juan Antonio just told us. But we will be looking forward to a change of direction of the road and a little bit of wind on the side. But I think the first moment to really light things up will be the intermediate sprint in Barwon Heads after 23.8 kilometres.
When they do get down to Barwon Heads, there's a right-hand turn onto Hitchcock Avenue where all the cafes are located in Barwon Heads. Number 1, the defending champion Chloe Hosking. The longer it stays calm like this, the better it is for Chloe.
Well, for Chloe, she just needs to get to the end of the race in the best shape possible, the least fatigued. And for her, if she can sit at the back barely pedalling as she is now, well, that's the perfect scenario rolling out for her. We saw her just before stick her elbow out a little bit as one of the riders comes past. She kind of can't help herself. She's always in sprint mode when she's out there. She's certainly been gaining form through the early season in Australia. She's very motivated to become the first female rider to go back-to-back here at the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. And, well, the Aussies are in with a good shot because Amanda Spratt and Rachel Neyland, former winners here as well. They're both absolutely on the hunt to defend. But so far, it's definitely going Chloe Hosking's way with a conservative start.
Number 102, that's Georgia Whitehouse from the Quartermenta real estate team, just moving around the outside, trying to improve her position ever so slightly. Number 44 that you saw momentarily, Shannon Molsey with the yellow helmet on. She was the Australian National Road Champion in 2018. And normally, as a former Australian road champion, wear green and gold sleeves to indicate on your sleeves and on the collar of the jersey to indicate that you are a former Australian champion. But with her Tipco team having that stripe of yellow already, she's gone for something a little bit different. She's got a band of Australian flags around her sleeves and also on the end of the legs on the nicks as well. It's a little difficult to pick up, but she has said she's going to try and rock that flag as much as she can all season long.
I'm just looking at the front of the peloton, and right in the middle, Loretta Hanson from the Trek team, and they have, well, a number of leaders to look after. If you look down the list of Lepisto, Borghini, and also Winder, they have a very strong team and are spoiled for choice.
They've got a lot of options. They kicked off it's the first time that Trek Segafredo have ever had a women's team, and their first race they actually won with a youngster from Italy, Letizia Paternoster, and she's not here today, but she, my goodness, she stepped out of the field and took quite an emphatic sprint victory in Adelaide. Loretta Hanson, the rider on the front there in the Trek Segafredo colours, the Aussie, was thanked very profusely for her efforts there, and she's very quickly fallen into that incredible support role. Their director sportif is Ina Joker-Turtenberg, and she's won more races in women's cycling than any other rider has, a sprinter. And this is the first time she steps into the director's car, and the riders are certainly already noticing the benefits from that.
104.2 kilometres to go, no breakaway as yet in the Deakin University Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race.
So at the moment, our big field of women are on their way down towards Barwon Heads. They'll start to feel the crosswinds a little bit now. 26 degrees, beautiful weather for riding. They are going to enjoy this race, and the pace will be picking up. Just about to get underway on 7 Main Channel. But right now, back out onto the action. Live on the road, you're watching the 2019 Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. This is the Deakin University Elite Women's Race. Some of the best female riders in the world. They are on their way to Barwon Heads at the moment. As you can see, the big peloton is still together. The pace is kicking up a little bit. They're about to take a bit of a left veer and head towards Barwon Heads, and there is a sprint waiting for them in Barwon Heads. So you can expect things to get even a little bit more exciting. So let's go back and rejoin your commentators now. One, Antonio Fletcher out on the bike, along with Robbie McEwen, Kate Bates and Matthew Keenan.
Mitchelton Scott team all milling at the front of the peloton. Sarah Roy, Georgia Williams, the big tall figure, that's Lucy Kennedy. Protected over the other side, they have Grace Brown, so too Jessica Allen, and in there amongst it, former winner of this race, Amanda Spratt, who had an extraordinary season last year. There she is, number 11, the bottom of the screen. Last year, Kate, she skipped the Commonwealth Games, which was a race she potentially could have won, to focus on the Ardennes Classics throughout April, and then to look forward to the World Championships. She made it clear a long way out she wanted that world title. She came home with the silver medal, and it was a brilliant performance, winning that silver.
And a courageous decision to miss a home Commonwealth Games in order to go for some goals overseas that haven't been realised yet. And it worked for her. She had an absolute standout season, a great performance at the World Championships to get that silver medal. And she comes in this season far more confident with the choices that she makes, and knowing that she's ticked some of those bucket item lists, things off the list. She's pretty relaxed. I mean, she's certainly on a lot of form. She's got the backing of her team, and just her demeanour gives her team a lot of confidence too.
The teams to look for, LA Cipollini, they have the defending champion Chloe Hosking. Mitchelton Scott, we've spoken about a lot, particularly with the presence of Amanda Spratt, the silver medalist from the World Championships last year. CCC Liv, they'll be another squad to watch. Trek Segafredo at the bottom of this list, they've got a few cards to play today.
They've got Lotte Lepisto, 7-time Finnish champion. Now, she has proven herself to be on form. She started in Melbourne a couple of days ago, taking that race out. And the Australian cycling team, Quarter Mentha team, Rachel Nayland, she's won here before in 2015, motivated to do so again. And of course, national champion Sarah Gigante rides in those colours too.
Also from that team, Robbie, a woman that you know well from Queensland, Emily Roper. She's, for the moment, flying only just under the radar, but I think she's about to break through that radar.
Well, I think since the national championship, she's on the radar. Maybe not as firmly as someone like Amanda Spratt, of course, but Emily Roper, she's been riding so well. She rode a great national championships. Her fiancé is also a very good rider who she trains with, Troy Herfoss. He's the Australian Superbike champion, but he's also a very good cyclist, races at national level, and they train together, and that has brought Emily along in leaps and bounds. She's had some great performances, and there's a lot of guys that go out in that training group as well that cannot follow her.
Okay, we've spoken a bit about the likes of Rebecca Wiseack and Sarah Gigante and that bike handling skill element, and caught out of position a bit. That's never the case with Emily Roper.
She's one of the savviest riders in the bunch, and she's so calm and composed. She stepped away from the sport for a little while, and people were quite sad about that, people in Australian cycling circles, because she is one of the most talented young riders to come through. But I guess what it comes down to is you have to really want it. And she stepped away wondering if it was what she wanted, but she's come back. We're very happy to see her back in the peloton, and certainly that team run by Donna Ray-Solinsky. Donna's got high hopes for her today and into the future. So we'll see what Emily Roper can do.
This is Gemma Eastwood at the front. Her father, Craig, is the general manager of Cycling Victoria. So he's got a work capacity to race like this. He's also got a little bit of extra skin in the game. He'll be watching very nervously. The colours of the quarter-mentor Australian national team that you see towards the front, that's Ruby Roseman Gannon. She's the current Australian Under-23 Criterium champion, and she rides for the same club as Sarah Gigante. They've got a strong young group of riders coming through the Brunswick Cycling Club, which does a brilliant job at developing junior riders.
This is Gigante here at the back of the peloton, number 103 in the Australian green and gold, predominantly white jersey. So just finding her way in this professional women's peloton. She's been at the front, she's now right down the back. I'm sure very shortly she'll be right up at the front again, and just following the instructions of the team director and of the senior riders in the team. As we see where the peloton is placed on our race map, they're about to take a slight left, so a little bit of a change in direction for the wind, and only 9 kilometres from the first intermediate sprint.
When they make that right-hand turn, they go down the main street of Barwon Heads, Hitchcock Avenue, and then they go around the roundabout, past the Barwon Heads Caravan Park, almost past Cadel Evans's very own house, then on to 13th Beach. And Kate, that's where the wind might get a little trickier.
Well, while it's not a blistering pace at this point, the teams are paying attention. So bit by bit, we're seeing the riders of note and the teams of note coming to the front and bringing their riders up. CCC Live on the left of screen in that orange colours, they're moving up. You know, it is important before this first sprint that they really make that effort to keep the pace up and to keep out of trouble.
Well, look at the change in intensity. So this is almost a race into that change in direction. So obviously they're starting to feel that this is where the wind is going to come a little bit in from the right-hand side of the riders, pushing them to the left-hand side of the road. And there's a bit of a squeeze through the roundabout. Things line out there naturally. And we see the wind direction. Well, that's not the way it's blowing into them at the moment, but from that southeasterly direction, it will be a head crosswind along this next few kilometres of road. And Mitchelton Scott definitely think it's worth the effort to give it a go and see if they can split things up. At the moment, though, doesn't look like it's enough.
This is Jessica Allen who is at the front. She's one of the sacrificial lambs early on for the Mitchelton Scott team. But Kate, one of the riders you've spoken about a lot in the white colours, the Finnish national champion, Lotto Lepisto, all of her experience, not missing a beat.
Well, you want to stay on the inside, so out of the wind. The wind here is coming from the right hand of screen, and the job is for the teams to get as far left as they can and protect as few riders as they can. They want to protect only the riders on their team, so it's common to see the colours lining up so that they can look after just their teammates, but it doesn't look like the wind is strong enough to really have an impact here.
Nerves always get the upper hand in a cycling race. If there's any chance of wind, where you know in past editions of this same race in the same place, there's been wind that split the peloton, the peloton will always be nervous there, be up the front and go, OK, there's no wind, we can relax again.
So Lepisto tucked in there in the Finnish champions jersey, just behind Mitchelton's Scott rider, just behind Sarah Roy. And you can see it, the white jersey with the distinctive blue cross on it, that is of the Finnish national champion.
Race favourite, so a lot of the favourites riding in the right position just in case.
Rebecca Wysack in the white colours in the middle of the picture. This is an old cliche, but nothing is truer than what we see today. If you're not moving forward, you're going backwards.
Oh, it's a bit sketchy on the left hand of screen. There is a bit of wind, so the riders are looking to duck up the side where the wind isn't hitting them, but they will run out of road and they need to be careful. Amanda Spratt, number 11, has been the champion here before, and of course ranked second in the world at the moment with a silver medal at the World Championships last year. You can see that the riders and the teams are lining up on the left, but they're so close to the edge of the road and the gutter. A small slip in attention, Robbie, and this is where it comes undone.
Amanda Spratt, number 11, with some support of her teammates, working her way back towards the front of the peloton as they head down towards Barwon Heads with a little over 97 kilometres still to race.
You're watching the Deakin University Elite Women's Race, and as you can see, things are jumpy there in the bunch. It's an exciting stage of the race. They are not far from Barwon Heads at the moment, and then we open up this beautiful coastline and enjoy the scenery as these riders push away hard to try and win this elusive title. We're back with more from the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race in just a moment. Paddocks are looking good, and up ahead of us, the Deakin University Elite Women's Road Race is well underway. They are coming into the first coastal township. Barwon Heads is their first stop. They will head from there on to Torquay. It is a beautiful time of the year, and don't forget too, a play is underway on the main channel, Australia versus Sri Lanka, the first test. Speaking of which though, stay right here, because could we see an Australian win this race on Australia Day? That would be something pretty special. We've got some great past winners here. The Australian girls have done great in years gone by. Can they do it again today? The world's best are here. Let's get back to Kate, Robbie and Matt.
The fluoro colours of the LA Cipollini team, that includes the defending champion Chloe Hosking, who's been playing a patient hand so far. She spent a lot of time down towards the back of the peloton, but as soon as Mitchelton Scott came towards the front just to test the legs as they hit the first stretch of crosswind, Chloe Hosking, right on cue, was at the front. They're heading up towards Barwon Heads. This was where the first of the intermediate sprints will be. Normally, there's a breakaway by this point. In fact, in the previous 4 editions, there has been a breakaway by this point. I'm expecting to see the likes of Matilda Reynolds get in amongst it and try and win a prize, try and take the intermediate sprint points and just put herself on the results sheet.
Well, it is good for the domestic teams to be able to appear on the podium, but certainly Specialised Women's Racing have a lot of options today. Matilda, she knows that if she can get to the finish in good shape, Reynolds, Sarah Roy, Chloe Hosking, they're all looking good. But, you know, it can be really nervous times when it starts like this, when there isn't a lot of action early on, because you're waiting for when it will happen. It's inevitable. They're not just going to roll into the finish like this. And I think sometimes the feeling in the bunch, there's a lot more anxiety than if you are going a little bit faster.
This a move by the Gusto step forward, King of the Mountains team, KOM team, presented by Suzuki, and they have the longest name in the peloton, mind you. They're making every effort to force the breakaway. Specialised team up there amongst it as well. This looks like it's Gemma Eastwood who is going off the front.
Well, Eastwood, she's in touching distance of the intermediate sprint now, just 3.5 kilometres to go. I think she'll get herself up the road and maybe be joined by these 3 riders now trying to come across. And good news for these 4 riders in the background. No more moves at the moment coming out of the peloton. So this could end up being the break of the day.
Well, 4 is a good number. 1 is a pretty terrible number to go on this course. There's not a lot of chance of survival. But 4 does give them a bit more chance. But the big teams aren't represented. So Mitchelton Scott, well, they're not up there. So I do suggest that they would have the impetus to bring this back if and when they want to. Gemma Eastwood leading the pace there. Bryony Maddox from the Specialised Women's Racing team leading the charge behind. The peloton, they're not sitting up. They are paying attention to this, because any early break, well, it needs to be balanced. Otherwise, it becomes quite a danger for those bigger teams.
And the bigger teams, they are milling towards the front of the peloton, making that quick assessment as to the quality of the break. Is this a breakaway that we can control? I think they'd be fairly pleased with the composition of that breakaway and the size of the break.
Well, that gap now is sitting at around 10 or 11 seconds. A couple more attempts coming out of the peloton at the moment. But the 4 in front, they need to get working together as quickly as possible, try and open the gap up even more. This is back in the peloton, and the chase being led by the Tibco team. And number 44, that is Shannon Mulseed herself. So maybe she has her mind on the intermediate sprints, and she feels she's about to miss out because that 4-rider group is moving away.
Well, in this scenario, you either have to jump a rider across to the break, or you need to bring it back, because otherwise you're completely wasting your energy. Medvedeva from the Be Pink cycling team. Well, she's in there, Slovakian champion, and she's certainly got a good resume under her belt. But we're still missing one of the big teams here, Robbie, so we need to see one of the other riders jump across to if they have any chance of survival.
Also have the French rider there from the Dolcini team, Victoire Berthaud. She's also made the move, number 66. Still more attempts, and always from Tibco. The bright yellow helmets, the blue jersey. So we saw Malseed having a go. And number 43 now is Charlotte Lucas from New Zealand. She's trying to get herself across the gap.
They're making their intentions very clear. The Tibco team, they want to be amongst that breakaway. They do have an outside favourite to win the race, Brodie Chapman, who's here on good form after a win recently in New Zealand. So they're keen to get into this breakaway.
Well, Charlotte ran top 10 here last year. She was riding with the Specialised Women's Racing team. She knows the course well, and she's got good form coming into it. The New Zealanders, they have their national championships early on in the season, just like the Australians do. So they have a natural advantage over the Europeans. They're just a little bit fitter because it's summer. The Europeans, to us, 26 degrees, that's not going to stress the Aussies too much, but for the Europeans, 26 degrees is quite a lot warmer than their winter conditions.
Well, Lepisto, the Finnish national champion, when she left home, it was minus 20. So it's a 46-degree turnaround today.
Well, here comes another turnaround. The break got a good little gap, but now it is being shut down by the Trek Segafredo team. They have a rider on the front of the peloton, and she is just about to make the junction. So it was a good attack. They got well organised. They had a workable gap, but that's been shut down very, very quickly. And we're now just 1.5 kilometres away from the intermediate sprint. Sarah Roy on the right-hand side. We said she'll probably work as a super domestique for Amanda Spratt, but really paying attention, may even get amongst the sprint.
She won the sprint jersey at the Tour Down Under. She likes to get those little tests under her legs early in the race. It wouldn't surprise me at all if she went for the sprint points here. It gives her confidence in the race, and it's good for the Mitchelton Scott team to be represented up the front. But it's Team Gusto once again setting the pace, and Cadel Hodges making the move for the Aussie domestic team. It's so good to see the locals animating the race against the European teams.
Well, not intimidated by the bigger teams. Velicecchi is the next one that goes through in the pink colours. It's then Georgia Williams from Mitchelton Scott who rolls over the top. Not a lot of calm returning to the peloton just as yet. The blue and white colours, that's Trek Segafredo. They contain a couple of the favourites to win this race. In fact, they've got around about 3 cards to play as potential winners.
Well, we're now 1.6 kilometres exactly from the first intermediate sprint. And seeing those counter-attacks be shut down so very quickly, it seems that teams are now really starting to concentrate on the intermediate sprint in Barwon Heads.
For the last 2 kilometres, Kate, the average speed has been 40.5 k's per hour. Throughout the race so far, 33 k's per hour. It's moved into the next phase. And Georgia Williams from the Mitchelton Scott team, number 13, heart rate up towards 160. She's pushing the pedals.
Well, this isn't an easy way to conserve energy for the riders because it's on-off, and those little spurts of energy, they actually take quite a lot out of the legs. In this kind of scenario, you almost want a break to go so that the peloton isn't stop-start, stop-start. But heading into the sprint, well, they're going to control it, I imagine, to get through that. We will see which teams feel good today, which riders feel good. Sarah Roy from Mitchelton Scott might test her legs out. Chloe Hosking may well choose to do that. She's a bit on and off whether she ever decides to test her legs early on or not. It depends how she's feeling on the day. But riders like Sarah Gigante, well, she'll want to get off the back and head toward the front because this is the danger time, Robbie. This is where it's one of the most perfect times to attack over the top of an intermediate sprint.
Well, we're 1 kilometre now from that intermediate sprint. I'm tipping Shannon Malseed to give it everything, the Aussie from the Tibco team. And straight after the sprint, that's where I think we're going to see the next big attacks.
They come down to a right-hand corner. From there, it's around about 500 metres to the finish line in Hitchcock Avenue in the heart of Barwon Heads. Once they're through the intermediate sprint, they take a sharp left, then another sharp right, and it's on the 13th beach where the crosswind will be a factor. Sarah Roy is right up towards the front, the black and yellow colours of Mitchelton Scott.
Well, Sarah Roy is almost an intermediate sprint specialist. I think that she has a very good chance here if she's motivated to do so. Oh, a slight mistake, though, going on the outside of the corner there. That can make all the difference. 10 or 15 metres, Robbie. A little bit of a slip-up from the Mitchelton Scott girls.
She went the long way. Chloe Hosking came through the inside, and now Roy gets the chance to get into the slipstream of Chloe Hosking, who looks like she is keen on the intermediate sprints, just like she was last year.
And you've picked the motivation of Shannon Molseed. She's the rider with the yellow helmet on from the Tipco team. She's just squeezed ever so slightly. This is not a full-on sprint by any stretch of the imagination. Molseed through the middle. She's with the yellow helmet. The earpiece is just flapping in the breeze. Keen to pick up the points as they head through here. Hosking in second position, just dips over the top, and Chloe Hosking sending a message that the legs are good. Barbiera, though, is challenging for the sprints. This is full throttle. Hosking trying to hold on. Barbiera getting her nose just in front. Hosking, maybe just. We'll wait for confirmation.
Well, Hosking always likes to test her legs early on in the race, but here is the dangerous move. Barbieri making the move over the top. It's almost textbook way to attack over the top of an intermediate sprint when everybody is suffering a little bit, but Hosking sitting tightly in behind her, grabbing that slipstream. Barbieri, she is motivated to make this work and make this break happen. Jessica Allen not too far behind the Mitchelton Scott rider, but where is the peloton?
They make the right-hand turn. They're now onto 13th Beach. Georgia Williams joins them to make it 3 out in front. Hosking is showing no signs, Robbie, of wanting to go on with this. She knows it's still almost 90 kilometres to the finish line.
This is where she doesn't want to be. She just put herself in the wheel, and she'll just wait for the peloton to reel them back in and get back into the slipstream and recover from that sprint.
The reaction coming again from the peloton. Looks like the white colours of Trek Segafredo and potentially the Finnish national champion as they head down towards 13th Beach.
Barwon Heads Golf Course on the right. There's 13th Beach. It is a gorgeous part of the world. We're going to take a really quick break. Back in a sec.
Peloton strung out along 13th Beach. There's been a few attempts to try and break away, Robbie, after the intermediate sprint, which is textbook, yet the conditions are too good in terms of being able to stay in the peloton comfortably, not windy enough to be able to really charge off the front. That first intermediate sprint into Barwon Heads, it showed us pretty clearly the intentions of Chloe Hosking.
Well, as they came down towards the sprint, really bunched, quite slow leading into the sprint. I did expect a bit more of a lead out. They got inside 200 metres before Hosking went, and it was Barbieri. She picked up the slipstream. Hosking still accelerating. Barbieri comes out of the wheel, challenges, gets up alongside, but never more than half a wheel. And Hosking easily through the line. What did surprise me a little bit was that Barbieri chose to go straight on with it afterwards, doing the sprint and trying to put an attack on the top of that. And we see the result. It's Hosking, Barbieri, and then Georgia Williams from Mitchelton Scott.
So a good start for the woman who wears #1, who won this race last year. We're now joined by the winner of the men's race, Jay McCarthy. Nice to be back in a race that you won a year ago.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be back here and looking forward to tomorrow.
Are you hoping for more wind than what we're seeing in the women's race? Because you're the kind of guy that likes to put the race in the gutter with a strong team around you.
Yeah, definitely. Have a super strong team, a team that normally supports Peter Sagan in the Cobble Classics, and some big guys like Massage Bodnar, Daniel Oss and Lucas Postelberger. So if the wind is up tomorrow, then I hope that we can probably do some damage also.
So Jay, a week ago in the Santos Tour Down Under, we saw you playing the team role, the team riding for Peter Sagan, and for obvious reasons, he's Peter Sagan. But here, like last year, you stepped out of that shadow so successfully. Looking forward to that again tomorrow, to take on that leadership role?
Yeah, tomorrow is a great opportunity for me. It's a course that suits me really well. We have a few guys in the team that are going good, so I think we have some options tomorrow, but yeah, I hope to have a great day tomorrow and give it another crack.
Now, looking at your win last year, you're a guy who can survive the climbs. The punchy climbs really suit you. You've got a good sprint, but you need to ride aggressively on this course. You can't sit back and think, I'm fast, I'll wait for my team to catch up. You rode a very aggressive race as if you needed to use the hills to get rid of the fast men.
Yeah, I think that would be definitely our plan again tomorrow. I think my best opportunity to have another go at the result that I would like is that we race the final few laps in Geelong aggressively, and it's a small group coming to the finish.
I assume you've been out for a ride this morning?
Yeah, we went out for a quiet spin to the beach, and yeah.
How far did you go?
We did about 40 kilometres, so nothing too exciting, but there was a great coffee in Barwon Heads, and yeah, a nice spin back into town.
It's a nice way to start. So with what you know of the weather conditions today and watching the women's race and knowing the qualities of a woman like Chloe Hosking, do you think today's the sort of day where Chloe can go back to back?
I think she's really motivated for trying to defend her title, and she, as we just seen in the sprint before, she's going for it. So I think they have to really push her on the climbs in Geelong, and if not, then I think Chloe's in for a really great opportunity.
Well, think in terms of a sprinter or someone like yourself, someone who's very rapid at the finish. What's the best way to ride this course when the pure climbers are going on the attack? Because it is a tough loop around here in Geelong with Chilambra, and then particularly the hill that comes after it. What do you find is the best way to approach it?
For me, if you can start in a good position on the climbs, and as you'd probably know it also, calling a sandbag when you're going up the steep climbs, you start near the front, and then you can try and lose a few positions, and then you're not putting the power through the legs too many times before you need those really big accelerations in the final.
What do you find the hardest part of the course for you personally?
Coming into the final laps is always a bit, touch and go, and you want to make sure you're in a good position, and you're coming to the most important part of the race. So it's definitely exciting coming into there, but also nerve-wracking to know if you've actually got the legs coming into those climbs.
It looks really relaxing down in the peloton at this stage, but you don't ever really get a chance to enjoy the view, do you?
No, not too often that you get to do that.
And Jay, just talk us through this finish here in Geelong. It's quite a particular little finish, that little downhill dip in the last 500 metres. Tell us about the timing, the positioning coming into that sprint, and how you got the job done last year.
Yeah, I knew last year we had a small group coming into the final, and we had a very fast group coming behind as Viviani nearly caught me on the line. So I opened my sprint pretty early last year and sort of hugged the fence, and I was happy that the tailwind behind me was able to bring me to the line before Viviani was coming fast from behind.
Is Viviani the man to beat tomorrow?
I think it could be. He seems very motivated, catching up with him last week in 2 Down Under, and he's won a stage there, so I think he's definitely motivated for tomorrow.
And who would be the man that you see as capable of splitting the field to pieces on the climbs and preventing guys like yourself and Viviani of riding for the win?
Yeah, pretty much all the top teams have like a pure climber that can do that. I think Mitchelton Scott will have a very similar plan to us tomorrow, and probably for the likes of Daryl Impey make it a hard race in the finals. So I think some of their young riders will be asking to hit the last climbs pretty hard to try and split the group, and hopefully we can benefit off of that also. So I think it's an exciting race, so we have to be on the balls of our feet, definitely.
The weather is always a big talking point, particularly this time of year for the Europeans. For the guys on your team, they would have been delighted yesterday afternoon at about 3 o'clock when it dropped from 44 degrees to 30. It's a move by one of the riders from the B Pink team. This is the Italian squad. The reaction coming from Gusto Step Forward KOM. At this point of the race where, Jay, it's difficult to force a breakaway because the conditions are so good for a recreational ride, but not necessarily great to create a breakaway.
Yeah, and when you have the crosswinds in this section of the race, there's in the microphone you'll be getting told that there's a turn coming up, so there might be some respite coming in the next couple of minutes. So it's very hard to split the field, but it can if you're out of position, it can really hurt the legs for later in the race.
When you are in a situation like this and it's starting to get strung out, you're caught down the back, and the team director is saying, boys, get to the front, Jay, you need to move up. Do you sometimes feel like getting on the microphone? Give me a break. I'm trying.
Yeah, that does happen actually. If you're on a good wheel, you don't want to be jumping out into the wind too much.
Well, Robbie, this is a surprise. Barbietta, one of the best sprinters in the race, second at the first intermediate sprint behind Chloe Hosking, is the one that's trying to cause the damage.
Well, I think she's pretty keen on the intermediate sprint prize for the whole race. There's another one coming up in Torquay fairly shortly. She's probably also thinking to herself, I don't think I can win this race. I don't think I can survive the hills, so I'm going to go out and make the best of it. She's got to beat Hosking, who showed she easily held Barbieri off. So Barbieri needs to get away, win the next one, and then she can win the competition, as long as she finishes.
So, Jay, before we do let you go, what do you do between now and tomorrow morning to get ready for the race?
Yeah, we're lucky we can have a massage, relax, and I'll stick my head out the window and watch the final of the girls' race, and yeah, just a relaxing afternoon.
Any superstitions? What's the last thing you'll do before you start?
Actually, yeah, you put it on me. I don't really know what I don't have anything too particular that I like to do before the start of the race.
So either nothing, or it's too embarrassing to admit?
Yeah, it's too embarrassing to admit.
All right, we'll leave you with that.
I get the impression you know what the answer was, Robbie.
No, I don't.
Okay. All the best tomorrow, Jay.
Thank you, guys.
80.
So the Deakin University Elite Women's Race, they are heading towards Brimley. The next right turn will be onto Brimley Road. They'll be heading to Brimley and then on to Torquay. If you're in Torquay, they are on their way towards you. Hope you're enjoying all the action. Stay right there. More to come after this. It's an early start, but it's well worth it. We hope to see you next weekend for the Liqui Moly Bathurst 12-hour right here on 7. Big weekend of sport here on 7 this weekend. Of course, the cricket is underway. The first test at the Gabba is on the main channel. You can keep across that. But right here, our big field is on their way to their next stop. They are heading towards Brimley at the moment. They will be taking a right turn towards Torquay, then on to Bells Beach. It is a beautiful part of the world, and we're going to show it all to you, as well as this incredible race. The girls really picking up pace. We have a one-rider breakaway at the moment. She's widening the gap as they head to Brimley. Let's go and rejoin Kate, Robbie and Matt.
Just inside 78 kilometres remaining. They're a little under 12 Ks before they hit Torquay for the second of the intermediate sprints. The 21-year-old Italian, Rachele Barbieri, she picked up second place in the first sprint. Very motivated for this second sprint. She rode well at the recent Tour Down Under in Adelaide. She had a third place finish on the final stage of the circuit race around Adelaide. So she is a very good sprinter. This is a great attitude though, Kate, for a young sprinter trying to break away from the peloton, aiming for that Mapai sprint prize.
Well, she made the move after that first intermediate sprint into Barwon Head. She just kept going. It's a very good time in the race to attack, because you've already put the effort into that. No riders were interested in going ahead with her. She chose to keep going herself, and good on her. It's a very hard way to attack this kind of race, but with almost 30 seconds gap, she'll head into Torquay quite comfortably toward that next sprint point, and she could take away the jersey.
She'll be quite happy here as she takes this right turn, which means the wind will come in a little bit more from behind her. So she's battled that headwind over that last 2 or 3 kilometre section. So now she'll get a little bit of respite. The speed will go up. But if the wind is coming a little bit from the side, you expect the peloton to be slightly nervous about that too, which would then reduce her gap.
And you can tell she's putting a lot of effort into this breakaway, because she is rocking and rolling a little bit on the bike, and she's down on the handlebars trying to get the most efficient and most powerful position that she can. You can see on the map we're down right on that coast road, right on the surf coast, and we're heading toward the Great Ocean Road down at Torquay. And 13th Beach Road, well, it offers a lot of wind, if nothing else. The riders do get a bit of respite as they start to take a few of these corners. Barbieri, her lead is out to 35 seconds. The peloton clearly not responding at this point. 11.1 kilometres an hour. The wind, Matt, that's really insignificant.
Well, it's better than a wind on the nose. Always better when it's just slightly behind. That'll give her that confidence, the bit of momentum. The peloton, there's no organisation at the front. There's no one team chasing. They're not concerned about Barbieri being off the front by herself.
I don't think they'd be too concerned about any one rider off the front. Some riders, you know, if Amanda Spratt tried to do this, which would be an odd move for a rider like her, but if a rider of that calibre found themselves off the front, you would expect the peloton to react a little bit more. But this is favourable for the bigger teams sitting in. And we can see just toward the back of the field, a lot of the riders are dropping back to the cars. You can see them between team cars, getting drinks, perhaps. You know, this is a quiet part of the race, and the workers in the team, the domestiques, will drop back, fill their jerseys with water bottles, and then move back to the peloton and deliver those water bottles one by one to their team leaders and team directors, from their team directors, and make sure that they're in the best shape they can be. hanging onto the car isn't strictly legal, Robbie, but there's obviously a bit of an issue going on here for rider Pradera, the Cuban riding for the Astana women's team.
Yeah, a little bit strange in talking to the mechanic, but she's actually sitting on the wrong side of the car to be where the mechanic is. But in any case, we're just cruising along in the peloton at the moment. Trek Segafredo riding at the front.
It's Taylor Wiles at the front, the blue colours from Trek Segafredo. She's one of the few riders from that team who's not a potential winner of the race today. So we'll see her doing a fair portion of the work. We've spoken quite extensively about the Finnish national champion Lepisto, but Ruth Winder, the 25-year-old American, she's a big chance. She's been on the podium before, and Elisa Longo Borghini is a brilliant climber, one of the best in the world. They've got a lot of options today,
which could also prove to be their downfall. You never know. As you said, just one or two riders to do the work. But I'm sure they do have a plan of who's going to do what and when, and who's going to go for a long-range attack, and who has to light things up to put a teammate in a favourable position. But at the moment, not much work to be done with just the one rider off the front. Now Barbieri, 37 seconds in front. She's 9 kilometres from the next intermediate sprint. And this is still very catchable for any team in the peloton who'd like to get out there and take the win in that intermediate sprint coming up in Torquay. 37 seconds, you could wipe that out in just over a kilometre.
You can wipe it out, but it goes to the motivation of the teams. The big teams, Ale Cipollini, Mitchelton, Scott, Trek Segafredo, they will be saving their energy to look after their main riders. These intermediate sprint points, well, they are well sought after, but with only one rider off the front, second and third is still on the cards, as well as the points at the finish. So the competition is well and truly not over yet. Barbieri, well, she's still working hard out the front, and that gap is still going up.
The rider that you saw just coming into the front of the picture at the head of the peloton, that was Daniela Reis, the Portuguese national champion. She's being spoken about as a dark horse for a top 5 finish later on this afternoon. There she is, number 62 on the far side of the picture. Her team's been pretty strong. They've been up towards the front, keeping themselves out of trouble. This is Jessica Mundy, number 1311. Down amongst it is a man who's regularly graced the podium of Paris-Roubaix, the great Spanish cyclist Juan Antonio Fletcher. Juan Antonio, what's your read on the race at the moment?
Hi Matt, hi Robbie, hi Kate. Well, here at the, it's very interesting to see how the bunch is approaching every time, every junction, that the wind is about to change, right? So there was a bit of nervousness before arriving to Barwon Heads. That was Mitchelton Scott riding on the left-hand side of the road. There was the CCC team doing the opposite, riding on the right-hand side. So that, in my opinion, felt like CCC team was trying to be safe and attack, not being boxed in as Mitchelton would have been if the crosswind would have happened. And the same thing happened, but the opposite on just as soon as we passed 13th Street, because we came to this big road onto Torquay, and the same happened. So we could see how CCC team were nice and open, ready to go on the attack if the wind was there. There's no wind. And also we had a quick chat with Jerome Clemens, the team sports director of CCC team. We all know him, the Dutchman. He's a good specialist on the crosswind. He was a bit upset, we were disappointed of the wind not really being here and not happening. But that tells me that obviously if the wind is there, CCC team certainly will try to go on the attack.
Robbie, you could see all the orange colours of that team, the CCC Liv team. It's emerging in what was the former men's BMC team. Now we know them as CCC with the women's giant Liv team, and it's a strong squad, and they are good in the crosswind. And you could hear almost a disappointment in Juan Antonio's voice. He wants some crosswind as well.
Well, classics riders always love to have the crosswinds, and yeah, the team director of CCC, Jeroen Blijlevens, the former sprinter who spent most of his career on the TVM team. Juan Antonio saying, well, Blijlevens was disappointed that the crosswind didn't turn up to the party. But historically, the Dutch teams have always been specialists in the crosswinds, and they love it when there are some, but at least in the CCC team, they have some very good climbers, as well as the New Zealand national team goes on the attack again. So they're riding very, very aggressively. And stepping off the front at the moment is Kirsty McCullum.
And it's McCullum at the front. And the specialised team responding, sitting in second position. That's Ella Blore that's trying to go with her. And straight away, it's Taylor Wiles by the looks of it, in the blue and white colours of the Trek Segafredo team. They're making sure that they mark any of these moves.
Well, the big teams, Trek Segafredo and Mitchelton Scott, they do need to keep their eyes open at this point, because a danger at this point in the race is that a good break will go without representation from one of the big teams. If all of the big teams are missing, well, then it's not so disastrous. But if just one of the big teams are missing, Robbie, that can be all over Red Rover and can really change the race.
Oh, they're more content just to shut everything down straight away. They have one rider off the front, which is easy for them to control.
And Robbie, you can see the colours in pink on either side of the peloton. They're the teammates of Barbietta, who is off the front on her own. They're doing all they can to discourage any breakaway.
Yep, try and shut things down, not block the race, although we do call this blocking. Just get to the front and be the one to set the pace and just try and drag things back and put off the other riders of going on the attack or even just lifting the pace, because you saw what that acceleration did to the gap. It was up to 51 seconds, bang, 12 seconds gone. It happened so very quickly.
Well, I think the field are under no illusion that this gap can't come back quickly, but what the teams are trying to do, the smaller teams are trying to do, is just send a rider across to that, because if Barbieri is one of 4 or 5 riders, well, they certainly could have a better chance of survival.
Barbieri, our sole leader, she's just had a little bit of time clipped off her advantage. She's about to make the left-hand turn to head down towards Torquay. Once she gets there, she turns right onto the Esplanade, and then it is the second of the intermediate sprints. That's her target, 6 kilometres away.
She wears the number 1 for good reason. You're looking at Chloe Hosking there in the bunch, the defending champion, Commonwealth Games gold medalist. In the rider introductions last night, she was very upbeat. In fact, she was bursting with excitement about this race and about her chances of going back-to-back. She wants to become the first rider here to go back-to-back. She has a very good chance. There are a lot of eyes will be on Chloe Hosking in the late stages of this race.
It's Chloe Hosking sprinting for victory. Bronzini is challenging, but it is Chloe Hosking who celebrates.
Well, to be honest, yeah, I don't think people really thought it suited me when I won last year. But I sort of fed off that, you know. A lot of people thought it was too hard for me to win. But ever since the first edition, I've been racing it, and it was something, when I first raced it, I was like, oh, this is so great. This is a great race. So I sort of put it on my wish list to win. And then ticking that off last year, it was a big accomplishment for me, because sometimes you get more satisfaction from the races that people don't think you will win. My director in the team meeting the day before had sort of said, Chloe, you know, just you save yourself. I don't think you'll get over the hill at the end. But I knew in my heart that if I got over that hill in the top 15 places, I could get back to the front, and then I would be hard to beat there. For me, this is such a phenomenal race, the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. It's really special to have such a world-class event in Australia, and I think that every year it's getting more and more respect on the international scene, and you're seeing bigger and bigger teams come. So I think this year is going to be really, really exciting racing. I really feel a sense of pride when I welcome the peloton to Australia, because I love Australia, and it's really special to be able to share my country with my teammates and the rest of the peloton, because I spend so much time in Europe, and I feel like
it is a beautiful place to visit any time of the year, but in summer it just glistens. Geelong, the waterfront, Eastern Beach, Cunningham Pier, the Royal Geelong Yacht Club. You're always welcome in there. A great place to drop into. And of course, GMHBA Stadium, home of the Mighty Cats. Some beautiful wine, some great fruit, food and produce is produced down this way. You'll always have a treat to eat when you come down to Geelong, the Great Ocean Road, and of course the Bellarine Peninsula, home of great golf courses, a beautiful place to bring the bike and have a ride, and to bring the boat and get out on the water, some beautiful waterways. Right now, here is a famous seaside town. This peloton is heading into Torquay, famous surfing town, home of great surfing companies like Rip Curl. Quicksilver are based here as well. This is a great surfing community. They love their water and they love their bike riding as well. So at the moment, our leader is Rakili Barbieri. And she is a single breakaway right now. She's been out for about 10 kilometres now. No great urgency to get to her, but let's go back to your commentators and rejoin Kate, Robbie and Matt.
Barbieri with a 30-second advantage. She's just on 2.2 kilometres away from the intermediate sprint into Torquay. She was second at the first one into Barwon Heads. Here is the approach to the intermediate sprint.
Well, we can see the yellow arrow, and they take that left-hand bend, which brings them just a couple of 100 metres away. The road falls flat downhill, so they get a nice run onto it, always wind direction dependent. But the speeds, they will be up approaching 60 kilometres now in an actual sprint. The men, we'll see tomorrow, they will be hitting 70, so it's a very high-speed sprint down the beachfront in Torquay. But at the moment, for the win, doesn't look like it'll be a sprint. It'll just be an all-out effort on a long-range attack from Barbieri. But just 22 seconds now, the gap.
This slight little uphill rise, she'll be averaging speeds of upwards of 40+ kilometres per hour, and she knows the peloton's breathing down her neck. The teams to look for, LA Cipollini, they have the defending champion Chloe Hosking, Mitchelton with a former winner, Amanda Spratt. She always starts as one of the big favourites.
This is not a done deal. She can still be caught before the sprint. 19 seconds. She's still just over a kilometre away from it in Torquay. There's another little dip and kick up around the corner onto the beachfront there in Torquay where the sprint line is drawn. And I'm starting to feel that she's not going to make it.
I don't want her to turn around anymore. I want her to just commit. She's come this far. She attacked over the top of the last intermediate sprint. She's been solo ever since. Look at her rocking and rolling and really putting the effort into this bike. She deserves this sprint victory. If that timer is right, 15 seconds, and she will get this. She's inside the final kilometre. But certainly the bunch has started paying attention. They are sprinting for second and third place.
And there's a proper lead out. There's a proper lead out coming. You saw the flags on the side of the road. She is riding into a headwind. You see now this is all out 100% effort because they have her in their sights.
And she has been off the front on her own now for more than 15 kilometres. This is a hard way to earn 3 points.
This is the little uphill. It goes around to the right, kicks back to the left. It's the LA Cipollini team of Chloe Hosking. They are hunting down Barbieri. Chloe Hosking there in third position, number one. She comes over the top of the rise, goes around to the left and starts to dip down towards the line. But she's still 500 metres away.
Once she gets past those flags on the left, it goes flat momentarily, then downhill. Now she's caught. What a brave effort from Barbieri, chasing just 3 points in the race for the Mapai sprint classification, and she will be swept up with 500 metres to go.
It's an absolute heartbreaker, but Barbieri will be absorbed into the chasing peloton. LA Cipollini leading out Chloe Hosking, but look at that, Jessica Allen and Mitchelton Scott, they are hot on the heels. This sprint competition, they are not taking this for granted at all. They are really working hard into it.
Romy Casper on the front, Chloe Hosking just waiting patiently, not wanting to waste any energy, but wanting to make sure of the maximum points. She still waits. They're hugging the barriers tight. Now she goes. Jessica Allen sticks with her, but Chloe Hosking, she makes it 2 from 2.
Oh, Hosking, a clear winner of that intermediate sprint. We see from above the gap back to the next two riders, both from Mitchelton Scott. I was a little surprised that Georgia Williams didn't take the second place. She took third back in Barwon Heads, but no doubt about the winner.
Well, I'm curious about the motivations of Chloe Hosking. It is really normal to see her sprint for that first intermediate sprint, to test the legs and to get a bit of confidence. But her going so hard into the second one as well with a full lead out, it makes me question whether she backs herself to get over the climb this year, because she's spending a lot of energy, both her and her team are spending a lot of energy out there to take these sprint points.
Or maybe she feels so good, she thinks she can double up and do it all again.
There she is sitting in second position. She's just had a drink of water. She sits on the wheel of Jessica Allen, one of the key domestiques, the team supporters from the Mitchelton Scott squad. The blue shoes on the left with the yellow helmet, the former Australian road champion, Shannon Mulseed. She's been ever present towards the front of the peloton.
It's not too far before they head up toward the QOM now. So I imagine the teams will want to keep the pace high because they don't want to fall towards the back of the bunch before such an important moment in the race.
The peloton making the left-hand turn onto the Great Ocean Road.
Well, here's a replay of that sprint. They'd mopped up Barwon. The lead out coming from Ali Cipollini. Low speed and a short sprint. So Hosking gets out of the saddle. She accelerates hard, then takes a look, and she just freewheels across the line. The Mitchelton Scott riders, Jessica Allen and Georgia Williams, taking second and third. But that was very little effort for a good reward for Chloe Hosking.
It was a smart sprint.
It was a smart sprint. You only need to win a sprint by a millimetre to be the winner. So Chloe didn't use any more energy than she needed to. But they do need to keep their eyes open because Barwon attacked after that last sprint. And we can see a rider having that same sneaky move off the front. It's just in that moment where the peloton hesitates and takes a bit of a breather that can be a real danger. They're starting to head uphill now.
It's the B-pink colours once again, trying to get off the fronts. And this time through, it's Valsecchi who is making a move to try and break away. This first section of the Great Ocean Road, as they've just gone past the RACV Club and the Torquay Golf Course, this shouldn't be underestimated. This is a tough stretch of road.
Now, this is a very tough little stretch. It's only a short climb, about 1 kilometre long, but it's the longest one they've had so far in the race. Is the first proper uphill section. And when they get to the top of this, they'll turn left and head down towards Bells Beach. And they've got the great big roller coaster of a road. So really high speed downhill. And you think, I'm almost going to have enough speed to roll up the next one. Well, it stops you almost at the bottom of it. And they're really quite steep and a heavy drag. But it's good to see Valsecchi backing up her teammate Barwon from the B-Pink team. They've been on the attack now twice, making good moves. We'll see if this one pays off any better than the Barwon move.
Well, Valsecchi, one of the more experienced riders on the team, and they've clearly gone out there with a plan to be aggressive. But it is dangerous. The riders just one at a time because they don't have a lot of chance of survival when they have nobody to work with them. It's very difficult to stay out in those circumstances with the field behind. At the moment, not a big response from the peloton. They'll be looking ahead to the QOM. They'll be wanting to make sure their riders are in good position. And with one rider off the front, well, it's kind of same scenario. We saw how quickly Barwon got mopped up by the field. And, you know, if some riders don't jump across and help Valsecchi out, she may end up in the same circumstance.
I tend to think this is more of an opportunistic move, a bit like Barwon. This is possibly to try and get the QOM. But I would think that the B-Pink team will be more looking at Teresa Medvedova, the Slovakian national champion, as a good chance to finish in the top 10 overall in this race.
Well, the riders do have race radios, so the women in their back pocket will have a little radio. They'll have an earpiece in and they'll be able to get instruction from their team directors back in the car. In some circumstances, it will simply be reminders to eat and drink and make sure that the riders are staying calm. But other times, it's really used for the strategy of the race. Mitchelton Scott, their team director, will be telling them just to stay calm and don't panic yet. But B-Pink, well, their team director, they'll be telling Valsecchi to go, to commit to this, to get into a good rhythm. They'll be telling her what her gap is. It's opened up to 26 seconds now. And they'll be relaying that information just to help the riders out on course.
Let's now get back down to our man on the motorbike at Juan Antonio Fletcher. Juan.
Hi, Matt. Here we are. I mean, just the road going up slightly uphill before the mountains KOM, and before we go left onto Bells Beach, obviously, famous surfing spot. And we have to say that the conditions has changed in the race, particularly because there's a lot more shelter now. The race is a lot more protected than it was. And that affected as well on the way. The riders, we see that they're tackling this part of the race a lot more relaxed now. We could see a lot more of nervousness before because the wind, despite not being that strong, it was enough to bring the nervousness among them. Now it will be more about going uphill for them, so they can relatively relax because the effort that we're going to have to put on the coming kilometers, it will be much higher.
Robbie, when they do make the left-hand turn, they head down towards Bells Beach, as Juan Antonio just referred to, and this is where the race moves into its next phase.
This is where the race for many teams in this peloton starts. You can see the course elevation map at the bottom of screen. Just little tiny bumps. It's a flat course until midway, and you can see what is yet to come. We talked about the big roller coaster of a road, then the QOM as they leave Bells Beach. This is where the race is really going to start to take shape, and the climbers and their teams will start to put some pressure on.
We also just have to make sure we keep a track of Juan Antonio Fletcher as they head down towards Bells Beach and make sure that he stays with the race and doesn't go for a surf, because he loves his surfing. And when we see him in the media compound at races like the Tour de France, it looks like he's doing the moonwalk everywhere because he's just rolling through the compound on his skateboard.
Well, a Spaniard who loved the cobbled classics in the north of Europe, and a European who loves surfing. He's a special guy, Juan Antonio. And we love him.
Now they're just about to make the left-hand turn down in towards Jan Juk and then on through to Bells Beach and the first of the Queen of the Mountains.
Well, just 19 seconds the gap, so it was approaching 30 seconds, and they put a neutral vehicle in between Valsecchi and the peloton, and this is that roller coaster of a road. And if we get a long shot of this road, you'll see exactly what it does. It really is quite a tough section.
Well, let's take a closer look at it as they go down through Bells Beach. This is the climb. The graphic very rarely does it justice, but as you look at those red zones, that tells the story that it does get very steep in a few of the pinches.
Yeah, so try and look at two things at once. The arrow going along the road, and it's beautiful to see it on a real map. But you will see the red sections on the profile, and red so often, danger, alert, and in this case it means steep, and it really does kick up towards the top, and a steeper section at the bottom, so that's one to put the sprinters in a little bit of bother.
And it's a long straight road as well, as you can see from that graphic. As this one is here, as you're on this descent, you can see the next climb in front of you, and all you're thinking is momentum. I want to get as many free metres as possible.
Well, there's not a lot of momentum on these roads because as they head further out, they're actually quite dead roads, and you think that you get to the bottom and you might be able to roll up, but it's actually not the reality of it. This really hurts the legs of the sprinters. It's the on and off and on and off, and it's kind of demoralising to see that big hill and that big road straight out in front of you.
And the one they're about to hit is the longest one of all of them along this stretch of road. You saw it rising up to the top of the ridge there. Riders at the back, you'll often see them just back off a bit, give a few lengths. They'll carry that momentum back into the slipstream, and then for as far as possible get a free ride up the next piece of uphill rather than sit tight in the wheel and have to brake when they hit the bottom of the hill.
Well, here's our sole leader, Silvia Valsecchi. She's a former dual Italian national time trial champion. She's finished second in the road race at their national championships. She'll have to put that ability against the clock to good use here, holding on to just a 17-second advantage. I don't like her chances of surviving to the top of the Queen of the Mountains.
Well, it's certainly a hard ask for a solo rider. A lot of the sprinters, well, this part of the race is a little bit intimidating, and you'd naturally think that they just sit at the back of the bunch and hold on. But often, Robbie, what's a good tactic is for the sprinters to start the climb at the beginning of the bunch, ease the pressure off and make sure they just have a wheel to go over the top. So in effect, they're losing 10 or 20 seconds on those front riders, but still maintaining their position in that main peloton. At the back here, none of our sprinters are here, but a little bit disappointingly, we can see Sarah Gigante, the national champion, sitting right on the back there. She's a climber, but she's scared of the bunch. This is not a good place for her to be.
And Robbie, the team that Juan Antonio spoke about just earlier, ever observant, the orange colours of CCC, as we're heading down towards the coast in Bells Beach, they've found themselves at the front for the first time en masse.
They're very well organised. They've always been easy to spot in the peloton. Those bright orange jerseys, always all together. Other teams we've seen spread all over the peloton, but CCC always right next to each other, because communication is often key when it comes to crosswinds, hilly sections, technical sections of the course. And they're ready for anything.
What a great shot to show just how steep these rollers are. This really gives a very good perspective of what the riders are facing. The bunch, well, they're not doing too much work spread out across the road. When they're spread out across the road, you know that the pace isn't on too much. And the riders at the back are getting a bit of a free ride. On the rollers, though, not a lot of free riding going on when the roads are so steep. But Valsecchi, well, she's really going for this KOM. And I would say that the B-Pink team, they want to leave this race with a jersey. They've gone for the sprint jersey with Barbieri, and unfortunately a lot of effort didn't pay off for her. But Valsecchi, well, you know, she's going for that QOM jersey now, and the peloton is starting to respond. Only 11 seconds. It's not actually a very big break when you consider how much time can be made up on these climbs.
Peloton, they've made the left-hand turn off what looked like cycling's answer to the Big Dipper. As they drift around to the right here, our race leader, Sylvia Valsecchi, she'll be able to see it. There's a car park just on the left, and then it's down to the famous Bells Beach.
I'm fairly confident in saying that at this point in the race, the riders aren't able to appreciate the beautiful scenery that we are watching them out there. And this is where the wind comes into play a little bit too. On the coast, the riders can battle the winds. They're not too strong today, but when you're out there working on your own, every little bit of wind counts, and you wish that the wind was absolutely at your tail and nowhere else.
Well, we get the view down across Bells Beach, and looks like there's a little bit of a wave coming through Winky Pop. It's a place you want to be today.
Beautiful part of the world, Bells Beach. It does catch the world's attention for the Rip Curl International that happens here each year, just around the Easter weekend. The peloton, though, as they drift by, as Kate mentioned before, they won't get the chance to enjoy it. And the roos off on the right-hand side always make you nervous as a cyclist, as they're a little skittish when they get near the road.
Specially organised for Australia Day. What a shot.
Perfect.
If they can just stay well and truly off the course, that'd be great. Looks like they won't get in the road of any cyclists, which is great. Valsecchi, that would be a story to tell, wouldn't it?
Well, they won't win the QOM, and Valsecchi, she's hoping she can hold off the peloton, but just 19 seconds the gap, and the peloton will get a really big run down this hill. Momentum in the group will help to erase most of that time gap, and they can see the QOM rather rising in front of them.
Well, interestingly enough, Valsecchi didn't look to be labouring in the same way Barbieri was when she was doing her breakaway. The paragliders, they're right over Bells Beach. They're certainly enjoying the view of the beautiful Great Ocean Road. What a day to be up there.
Perfect conditions. Clear blue skies, hardly a breath of wind. They've got control, and the surf's up.
Yeah, surfer getting a nice long ride down there below, so idyllic conditions here along the surf coast in Victoria, but the conditions for the riders are about to get a little more spicy as they're about to hit the foot of the QOM.
As they go past the car park, they do dip down to the beginning of the first Queen of the Mountains climb in the race for the Subaru jersey. And clearly B Pink, Kate, as you've mentioned, they're out to pick up a prize, but it doesn't look good at this point. 19 seconds. They can almost reach out and grab her.
Well, and Valsecchi doesn't look to be as committed as Barbieri was. She looks to be quite comfortable, admittedly, but that 20 seconds will come back very quickly once the bunch start to chase that QOM in earnest. This is a very nervous point for the main contenders of the race, because it's their first real test of any significance, this first QOM, and the likes of Matilda Reynolds, Sarah Roy and Chloe Hosking, the sprinters, well, they'll be very nervous, I think, to see how their legs feeling as they go up this climb.
As a sprinter, Robbie, 3 green jerseys at the Tour de France, been in the situation of one of the sprinters in this race, as mentioned by Kate, the likes of Sarah Roy. How would you feel about the way things have been going so far?
You'd be feeling pretty good about them. You sitting in the peloton, you haven't really had to make much of an effort until this point, but we do see some riders just starting to struggle now. Number 132, Erin Keneally, active early on. Good rider on the flats, but starting to be found out as the road kicks up. That tells the pace is on, and there's some riders here who really want to get amongst the QM. But as a sprinter, you'd be happy so far, and you just have to hang in over the top here. Then you get some long, flat sections again until we are on the outskirts of Geelong.
Well, let's not play down just how much fatigue the riders can accumulate in the first 60 kilometres. It's easy to watch the pictures and make comments that they haven't been racing that hard, but the on-off acceleration, it really hurts your legs. Amanda Spratt from Mitchelton Scott just jumping toward the front of the bunch there. Valsecchi, well, she's well and truly inside. The peloton will swoop her up fairly quickly as they climb up towards this QOM. Good to see Amanda Spratt looking after herself and in a good position. She won't be surprised by any attacks by sitting up there. But Chloe Hosking, we need to see those colours, because she also needs to make sure she doesn't get into too much trouble.
The white colours on the far right-hand side of the screen as we look at it, it appears as if Rachel Nayland for the first time is starting to show herself up towards the fronts. You can see where the leaders are as they've just gone past Bells Beach. They're approaching the start, really, the first of the Queen of the Mountains prizes. It's a difficult climb to measure because, as we saw the graphic before, it goes up early, flattens out, little descent in the middle before the last little pinch to the top of the climb.
Valsecchi has looked really comfortable on this climb, really controlled, not concerned at the peloton, came racing up very quickly and erased most of that gap. And I wonder if she's almost played that sprinter tactic of sandbagging like Jay McCarthy talked about. Stay within yourself, ride tempo, lose some ground, but still have something left. And she's into that dip now. She's really not far away from the QOM.
Well, 800 metres to the top.
And the bunch will collect Valsecchi quite quickly here before they head on into the QOM in earnest. 500 metres to go before the top. So it's actually quite a short climb because they're dipping down at the moment before they sweep back up.
Well, Valsecchi, she's just cruising along at this point. She's waiting for the pounce to come from behind. Amanda Spratt is just riding up towards the front. There she is, number 11, not wasting too much energy. She's just doing 136 beats per minute. She is well within herself, Amanda Spratt. And the cadence at 90.92, that shows that she's very comfortable as Valsecchi has now been caught.
Well, now the race really starts in earnest for the QOM. The acceleration has come. They've mopped up Valsecchi straight away on the very steepest part of the climb. It's a short run to the line. And one of the riders from the rally team is going away from them.
That's Dobell Hickok. She was the rider that finished in 4th place in the recent Tour Down Under. She's one of the pure climbers in this race. She's a dark horse to win the race overall, but at the moment she leads the battle for the Subaru Queen of the Mountains classification.
Well, Dobell Hickok has come here with big ambition. She is a climber, and these roads don't intimidate her at all. At the Tour Down Under, I asked her how she felt about Wollonga Hill, which is about 3k, and she laughed and said, "That's not a hill." And it was clear that I was a sprinter asking the question on that one. But a 500-metre climb won't bother her, nor will the 900 metres up Chalumbra. She took that quite comfortably. She doesn't seem motivated to go on with it. And honestly, why would she be? Because she needs buddies if she wants to make the break work. But when she accelerated, Taylor Wiles hot on her heels from Trek Segafredo. But Dobell Hickok just with a good rhythm and climbing away from the other riders towards that QOM. An acceleration from the bunch, but nothing that could match Dobell Hickok. And the rider from Rally United Healthcare, well, she took it quite comfortably.
Rodriguez from the Astana team in 2nd position.
Well, what I noticed on that KOM, really attentive at the front, Amanda Spratt and Maul Monpasio, not going for the intermediate or the QOM points, but right at the front of the peloton, just keeping an eye on proceedings.
Well, this is a danger point in the race because this is where the riders really do get their first test. And quite often with a more conservative start to a race, it can actually make your legs feel dead. Instead of getting to this point and feeling quite fresh, sometimes you go to open up the tank and are surprised by how much fatigue you actually carry.
Across the top of the first of the Queen of the Mountains prizes, inside the last 60 kilometres, the race is heading down towards Mauriac.
And this bunch is on its way to the Great Ocean Road. They'll soon leave the coast, turn right into Forest Road and head back towards Geelong. We'll show you all the action. Stay right there. This is the Deakin University Women's Elite Race right here on 7. Great Ocean Road Race for 2019. You're watching the Deakin University Elite Women's Race. They are on the Great Ocean Road heading towards Anglesea, but shortly they will take a hard right onto Forest Road and then the long stretch back to Geelong. They are in the back half of this race. 113 kilometres they set out on. We are 53 kilometres to go. Now, AFL Women's begins next week on 7, and we are, of course, in the heart of Cats territory here. Jackie Felgate has tracked down a couple of very excited Cats players.
It is a very big week for Kate Darby and Renee Gehring, who will be playing in Geelong's first ever AFLW game this coming Saturday at Geelong. Guys, it must be so exciting.
It's so exciting. The team's just getting really up and about at the moment, and I think the whole town's really getting around it, which is really exciting for us as well.
And 20,000 people are expected for your first game. Have you ever played in front of a crowd like that?
No, definitely not, but we're excited and we're hoping to even beat that, so really exciting.
Now, you're quite well known in Geelong for being a star netballer. How is it making the transition?
Yeah, I've loved it. I was pretty physical on the netball court, now to play a fair bit. So like a few of the basketballers who got fouled off a lot, I was on the ground or getting contacted. So, yeah, I love the transition, lots of fitness that's involved and running around. So.
And Kate, you've played for Carlton before in the previous AFLW. What's it been like playing for Geelong now in the VFL?
Yeah, look, so I was with Carlton for the first season, and it was the first season of football I've played since I was 11, so it was very much a big learning experience for me. So coming down to Carlton is just, coming down to Geelong has just grown my footy so much, and I think, you know, the girls, we're all so close, which has been really, really positive all around.
And I think with Geelong, everybody here barracks for Geelong. If you don't barrack for Geelong, you've got to get out of this city. So coming down here, it must have been a bit of a change as well, the way the whole town is really obsessed with the Geelong Football Club.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing about Geelong. It's kind of like a small country town, but a large version of it. So everyone down outside of Melbourne, they're all really getting around us, so it's been fantastic.
And as a skill set changing from netball to footy, must have been a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. The kicking, the handballing came a little bit easier in terms of the game sense and around the ball, but kicking was certainly something that I continue to work on. And but yeah, it was a new big change.
I'm impressed with her tackling coming from netball. She's a natural tackler, but that's not part of netball.
Well, best of luck on Saturday, guys, and of course you'll all be able to catch the game on Channel 7.
Just having a few problems collecting the biddens for her teammates. One gone, she recollects, and now she'll load up with enough to be able to provide a bidden for each of her teammates. They'll be relieved about the weather conditions today, certainly by comparison to yesterday, where they had temperatures of 44 degrees. Today, 23, 24 degrees, ideal for recreational cycling. Nice for a few of the riders in the peloton, but some would want a little bit more wind.
So the bottles come out of the car and into the back pockets. Oh, well, and a bit of a drop there. Well, it is hard because these jerseys are quite tight because they're considering aerodynamics. So they're very tightly worn jerseys. So to wedge these bottles into the back pocket requires an incredible amount of coordination to ride no hands, to wedge it in the back there, and then to get going. They have a lot to concentrate on to do that. You don't want to drop a bottle in the middle of the bunch because if you hit a full bottle on a bike, well, that can be quite dangerous. So if she's going to drop it, it's probably a good time to do so. But it does mean that she'll be back at the car collecting bottles for a little bit longer. The conditions aren't too hot, but sometimes, Robbie, this can be the danger area because they don't consider drinking like they would when it's 35 degrees. They think about it a lot more now. So they actually have to be more diligent in these temperate conditions to make sure they stay on top of their eating and their hydration.
Well, with just 51 kilometres to go, they do need to make sure that the fuel tank is full. They've made the right-hand turn onto Forest Road. This long section, as the name suggests, through the forest. There is not much else along here. It's really a quite protected section. They will be picking up a tailwind in this southerly. So a rather easy part of the race, and the riders do get ample opportunity to refuel, go back and get bottles. They're approaching the feed zone at 30 kilometres to go, but we have seen in previous editions that's quite often where the race really lights up. So better to be safe, early, fuel up, get everything on board just in case the action is hot when you get to the next feed zone and you do actually end up missing it.
Well, it's kind of poor etiquette to attack through a feed zone, but the feed zone here is on a climb close to the finish where it can be quite a dangerous time for the riders. So the riders know this. They've been here in the past, and they do know that this section before they head up to Mauriac is where they do need to take care. It's the least dangerous section of the course, if you will, for breakaways, and so this is where they can eat and drink and look after themselves. Have you ever had anybody attack through a feed zone, Robbie? Because I tell you what, you're not a popular rider when you do it.
I've seen it happen many, many times.
Seen it happen or do it yourself?
No, seen it happen.
This is our race leader, Nicola Steiginger, the 20-year-old Dutchwoman from the Beat Pink squad. This has certainly been the team that has been the most aggressive. She's the third rider from that squad to try her luck off the front. Just inside 50 kilometres remaining, making their way along Forest Road, heading towards the feed zone, which is in Mauriac. And you can tell by the trees on the side of the road, often this is a portion of the course where they think we'll get a bit of protection, we'll get a bit of relief. But the leaves on those trees are not moving at all. Reaction now coming from the peloton. It's quick along this section.
Well, we've gone from quite a wide road of about, two main lanes and quite wide shoulders to quite a narrow road. So that it's actually very important now for the riders to stay near the front of their bunch. A little bit of field art there for Anglesey.
And if they had have skipped the right-hand turn onto Forest Road and continued straight along the Great Ocean Road, they would have ended up in Anglesey, which is a fantastic spot for a summer holiday.
Rebecca Wyasack going back for bottles now. That's what happens when they've got the bottle in the air. That's an indicator that their cars need to come up. What then happens is the commissaire will radio back to their team car and say, rider number 104, Rebecca Wyasack, looking for a feed. And so that's what the bottle in the air is indicative of. It's generally also considered etiquette when a lot of the teams are back at the bunch feeding that no attacks go, but well, as we can see, that's not always respected.
Out to 26 seconds now, the advantage, but the peloton is starting to change shape.
You could just see them starting to accelerate. The riders at the back of the peloton out of the saddle, changing gears, accelerating, which tells us there's a move at the front. We've seen a couple of riders trying to go across to this solo breakaway rider. And if we take a look back, you'll see the physical gap, and there are riders trying to get away, little splits opening up, and a group of about 9 or 10 riders now moving off the front, but all the major teams represented, just making sure they slip a rider into the move. And we see them put one there and not contribute, but just sit there, bring everything back together, knowing that their team leaders are sitting in the peloton, and they will roll back up. They'll have everything back under control.
Well, for a breakaway to survive, everybody does need to work together. The attack's coming thick and fast now, but the peloton absolutely responding, and there isn't a single metre of gap opening up there. Just the pace increasing. Quite narrow roads now, so this is better for the peloton safety-wise to be strung out like this. Loretta Hansen, the Aussie, sitting in third wheel. Well, she's really looking after Trek Segafredo.
This is the Japanese national champion now at the front, one of the teammates of Chloe Hosking. What does that tell us about their strategy and the optimism of Chloe to win the race?
Well, Chloe is certainly shown to be on good form from her win in the first two sprints. Nadia Qualiotto, she's also an excellent climber and another really good option for Ale Cipollini, so they're certainly on the ball.
Heading along Forest Road, direction Mauriac before eventually making it back into Geelong. The race is moving into its next phase. 11 seconds the advantage for the sole leader.
So just over 47.5 kilometres to go in the Deakin University.
35 seconds the advantage for the sole leader. The peloton, they're in pause mode at the moment. There's been a few little attacks, and once they get through Forest Road and it opens up again, particularly through Mauriac and after the feed zone, that's when I expect we'll see the next serious attacks.
The calm before the storm. At this point, the riders, they're within that final 50 kilometres, and they know that any energy they expend from here on in is very valuable. They need to be very selective about the energy they do. When these small attacks are going, and we have seen a few go and then come back, that stop-start, well, that can really hurt the legs. We saw one of the Team Tipco riders pull over to the left there, possibly a mechanical. And an attack goes from Swap at the Mexican team. It's the first time they've been out here in Australia, and that's Andrea Ramirez. And she looks to be committing to this break. Oh, but we don't want to see them go solo, Robbie, because they just don't have a lot of chance of survival.
Well, I tell you what, the Tipco rider who just pulled over, they don't want to see a reaction like this coming, because that is a really poor time to be on the side of the road doing whatever you're doing back there.
But a very quick response from Ale Cipollini, the team of last year's winner Chloe Hosking. They've got another rider, Nadia Qualiotto, who's an excellent climber and who would do very well up Chilambara Crescent. They are very attentive, and it's the Aussie rider, the national champion, Sarah Gigante, sitting tightly in third wheel there, not letting anything go at this point in the race.
Riding brilliantly, Sarah Gigante. She's playing a role as an opportunist in some respects, but also supporting Rachel Nayland. Rachel Nayland is the team leader for Quartamenta Real Estate. She won this race in 2015, and for the first time, Rachel Nayland has started to show herself up towards the front. And Gigante is making sure that her team is represented, so they don't have to do any chasing to protect Rachel Nayland.
Well, the young Aussie champion, Sarah Gigante, she was the one right in the middle of the picture, just throwing that drink bottle away, getting a fresh one. And never mind, people, those bottles do get collected. A vehicle actually goes round and does a sweep. So when there's no spectators or fans around to go and grab a souvenir, there is a sweep vehicle that picks them up. Gigante's been given a definite job to do. Riding at the front, go with any breaks, make sure you keep things together for Rachel Nayland, who's just on the right of screen. She's, there we go, number 101, right from above in the blue helmet.
And rider number 104, Rebecca Wysack, she's the bottle collector and she's the one delivering it to all of her riders.
And number 106, just behind and next to Nayland, is Emily Roper, the lady we spoke about a little bit earlier, a dark horse for this race. Rode a very good national championships. I thought she did a little bit too much work too early, but that definitely earned her a spot in this team for the Cadel Evans Road Race.
But it just goes to show that we really are entering the important part of the race, because there are some big names gathering at the front here. 121, that's Loretta Hanson, the Aussie riding for Trek Segafredo. And Taylor Wiles, their team workhorse, by her side, the Quarter Mentha Aussie national team, well, they're all grouping toward the front because that's the safest place to be. We want to see Sarah Gigante sitting up there. Loretta Hanson, well, she's not doing too much work. 133, that's a pretty cruisy heart rate for her. Good, nice, fluid cadence. She's just getting ready for those climbs and getting ready to be in a position for her teammates.
And you can see the head just twisted to the side, having the chat with Taylor Wiles, number 125. They're two of the key workhorses for Trek Segafredo. A team with a couple of genuine contenders, in fact 3 genuine contenders to win the race. Lepisto, the Finnish national champion, Longo Borghini, the brilliant Italian climber, and Ruth Winder, the American, who was second here 2 years ago.
And Lepisto in the Finnish national champions jersey, 7 times national champion for Finland, just shaking the hands about. You can tell her distinctive jersey as Finnish national champion because it's white with the blue cross on it. The national champions jerseys are very different to the individual team jerseys. The Australian one, well, it's got green and gold stripes. The Australian national team here, it's a similar jersey, but Gigante, well, you can tell her because she's got both sleeves with green and gold stripes. It's quite an honour, Robbie, to race in your national champions jersey.
It's fantastic to wear that jersey, carry it all season long, and there she is, number 103 on the left, as we look down right on top of Lotta Lepisto, the Finnish champion, as we just spoke about.
-20 when she left Finland, 44 degrees in Geelong yesterday, a 64-degree turnaround, and she's one of the favourites.
And she'll be enjoying the freedom of wearing just a jersey in Nicks as opposed to undershirt, jersey, another jersey, a long sleever, another jacket over the top of that, leg warmers and all the rest of it.
When it's -20, indoor training is really attractive.
This is our leader, number 94 from the B-Pink team, Nicole Stagginger, the Dutch woman. Almost pulled back before they hit Forest Road. In fact, she was just about 3 seconds in front and then eased her way back out. But it's like they've got her on a leash. They're just sort of pulling back on it, letting her go again a little bit. And I'm sure she'll be wishing that a group would attack again and make its way across so they can really make a go of a breakaway. Just not happening at the moment.
Well, the riders know that once the speed increases from the field, it's not decreasing again. They're too close to the finish now, that every move will count, every little piece of energy. Chloe Hosking, the Aussie, the Commonwealth Games champion. Gee, that was an impressive win on the Gold Coast last year. And she's just having a chat to her teammate. And she won the first 2 sprints here. She's leading the sprint competition ahead of Georgia Williams and Jessica Allen. And Chloe Hosking, well, the race is going her way so far, and she looks fairly relaxed.
She'll be comfortable with the situation. She's shown that she's got good sprinting legs on, collecting the 2 intermediate sprints so far. But Chloe Hosking, no doubt, has bigger ambitions to win this race for the 2nd year running.
41 to go. They're coming to one of the most challenging parts of this course. Talk to any of the international riders within the first sentence. Chilambra Crescent will be mentioned. It's ahead of us, so stay right there. We will be back with more action from the Deakin University Women's Elite Race in just a moment. See towards Geelong, and wherever you are, hope you're having a wonderful Australia Day. Of course, a lot of people are celebrating it here with us at the live site and in and around the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. Jackie Felgate caught up with some of them.
Not only will you get to see some of the world's best cycling on display here in Geelong over the Australia Day long weekend, there's also plenty to do here at the event site. You can watch the race on the big screen. There's the Deakin University tent where you can test your fitness. I'm pretty embarrassed about mine. There's also the Swiss tent where you can enjoy a healthy cooling drink after the long race. And also there's plenty for the kids. There's rides, there's food trucks, there's activations throughout the site. There's perfect weather here this afternoon, so really really no excuse not to come on down. And if you can't make it today, well, tomorrow is the big one, the men's race. More than 80,000 people are expected across the Australia Day long weekend. And there's nothing more Australian than a Vegemite sandwich, and you can enjoy one of those down here too.
Well said, Jack, and a fantastic place to be. So if you're free tomorrow, come down and join us here in Geelong. It's a gorgeous place to watch the race and all the festivities. Just about 38 kilometres to go here, the Deakin University Elite Women's Road Race. It's about to explode. Let's go back and join Kate, Robbie and Matt.
Inside the last 40 kilometres, the stole leader from the B Pink squad, the Dutchwoman, Nicola Stanger, out to 1 minute and 18 seconds. We've said it a few times, the calm before the storm, but along Forest Road, this is really very settled. Number 15, that's Lucy Kennedy from the Mitchelton Scott team. She'll play an important role once we get to the outskirts of Geelong, because she's one of the world's best climbers, and she could set this race up for Mitchelton Scott. Robbie, we're going to put you on the line. Who wins?
Amanda Spratt. No, it's not exactly going out on a limb, but after seeing the season she had last year, and I mean, look at just how calm she is, physically calm. 106 beats a minute at 30 kilometres. Okay, she's just sitting in the peloton. The pace is not really on, but the fact that her heart rate is this low after already 75 kilometres of racing, I think she's poised to leave them behind on the climbs. She performed so well in La Flèche-Wallonne, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and of course that Super Hilly World Championships where she won the silver medal. For mine, hands down, she'll have to mess it up to lose it.
106 beats per minute. There are some people who get their heart rate higher than that, getting off the couch to make a cup of tea to watch the race.
Yours is higher than that when you walk into the commentary box.
Kate Bates, what about you? Who wins?
I'm going to go for the Finnish champion in Lotta Lepisto, riding for Trek Segafredo. She's 7 times national Finnish champion. She was 3rd at the World Championships in 2016, 2nd at La Course. She's certainly got the CV under her belt. She came to Australia very motivated for some results and some training at the Tour Down Under. Unfortunately, she was sick and wasn't able to compete, but she's taken that time to really hone her form, and she looks very comfortable. I mean, she's just sitting in the pack, but she's been in the front half of the pack all day. That to me indicates that she's feeling pretty good and she's fairly comfortable. She rode really well in the Criterium a couple of nights ago at Albert Park. She showed that she's on form, and certainly if she comes to the finish, even in a small group, well, she is the big danger rider, and Amanda Spratt needs to get rid of her, because I would not like to enter that final kilometre with Lepisto on my wheel.
And she's got such a strong team around her. Trek Segafredo, we've spoken about them quite a bit. They've got a few options to play, and she's the one that sits tight and she waits. And if Chloe Holsking can win this race, as she did last year, Lepisto certainly can win.
I think the great thing about this field is there are a lot of riders on paper that can win this realistically. You can throw out, oh, maybe this one and maybe that one, but it is such a high quality field. It's the best quality women's field we've seen since this race started. So there are many potential winners as well. And at the moment, our leader out to 1 minute and 27 seconds. Not a race-winning break, but certainly a handy lead, and will take some chasing down. Not far away from the feed zone now. So we've done our predictions. Matthew Keenan, who's your pick?
Do I have to get off the fence, really?
Yes.
Yes.
As much as you might be stuck in that barbed wire, off the fence, give us a selection.
OK, well, I'm going to go with Trek Segafredo again, much like you, Kate, but not Lepisto. I'm going with the young American, Ruth Winder. She's 25 years of age. She was 2nd here a couple of years ago. There she is, number 126. She's ridden well so far this season. The early form is good. She was solid on Thursday towards Zero Race Melbourne, protecting Lotta Lepisto. She can go with the climbers, and she's a quicker sprinter than most of the climbers. I think she's the woman to beat.
Do you think she's quicker than Amanda Spratt?
Yes.
Do you think that they can unload Lepisto?
Yes.
We're all backing our favourites here, aren't we? I mean, I guess that's the point of not sitting on the fence, right?
Yes,
Trek Segafredo certainly have, you know, one of the most robust teams here, because even their workers in the right break, they could certainly win. Loretta Hanson and Taylor Wiles, I would back them if they were in a small break to win.
And it's what you really need. In a team of 6, you don't have a lot of riders to offer up to do the work, and you want to have an option A and an option B. And certainly Trek Segafredo have that with Winder and Lepisto. Mitchelton Scott have that with Amanda Spratt and with Sarah Roy if it comes back in a larger group.
And Grace Brown. Do not underestimate Grace Brown.
So you're starting to box the field, Matthew, and you're starting to go for others?
No,
that fence is looking comfortable.
I'm sticking with Ruth Winder. I've gone early.
Well,
unless Grace Brown wins, and then you've got to say, I was on her. I picked her.
Well, Trek Segafredo have not only a great team on the bike, but they've got Inayoko Teutenberg, who is one of the most winningest cyclists in women's road cycling history, sitting back in the car. And she is one of those kind of cool, calm and collected race directors who would just be telling her girls to chill out, to not panic yet. 35k left to race. This is the kind of course that really would have suited Ina because she was an incredible sprinter, but goodness me, she could certainly get over those sharp, pinchy climbs like Chalumbra. There is nobody better to guide a team and guide a group of riders than her. So they've sort of got an extra star on their sheet for that one.
I think she might have won a World Cup here in Geelong in around about 2004, 5 or 6, somewhere in that vicinity.
She did, but we didn't go up Chalumbra.
No, but
there were some sharp pinches in it, certainly.
The peloton altogether, they're now letting our sole leader, Nicola Stanginger, out to 1 minute and 32 seconds. The 20-year-old Dutch woman, she hasn't got a lot of results to speak of as yet. She's only 20 years of age, but she's making a good impact on the race.
I would have loved to have seen what would happen if she had 1 or 2 riders with her, because that would have really made a very big impact. I fear that she's just being toyed with a little, Robbie. They're just kind of leaving her out there to ride her hardest, and when they're ready, they'll just turn the crank and reel her back in.
I think with 34 kilometres to go and those tough climbs coming on, not only in Geelong, but on the approach to Geelong, there's quite a significant hill that comes on the run into town in the finale, that they'll lead into that gap very, very quickly, like we've seen happen with the other solo leaders in this race. When the peloton turns it on against a solo rider, well, that gap just melts away.
The Trek Segafredo team in the blue and the white colours at the front, controlling the race for the moment. They look fairly content. The orange colours of CCC, the team that won Antonio Fletcher, drew our attention to earlier on. They spent a long time looking pretty relaxed early down the back. Since it's been getting closer towards the business end, we haven't seen too much of them on camera 3. They've been right near the front of the peloton.
Although they're just rolling along, that heli shot gives you a better impression of actually how fast they are moving. Now in this tailwind section, it's up and down. It's on one of those little drags uphill at the moment. And it really is just getting set at the front of the peloton, waiting for the next attacks. And even though this section has been fairly straightforward, it's when those big accelerations come that you really got to get the power down. Some of those that Velon data we're getting, Loretta Hansen covering attacks. Along this section, she hit a max wattage of 890 watts covering one of the attacks. So it certainly is hard work when it is on.
That is sprint territory, just to try and close things down. But at the moment, we have a sole leader with an advantage of 1 minute and 38 seconds. They're heading towards the feed zone in Mauriac, and then it'll be back towards Geelong, where the climbs really start in earnest.
Yeah, you can feel the tension in the bunch. Some teams are about to spring. About 33 k's to go. We're back shortly.
Stride, but it's not going to happen.
Well, this is terribly awkward.
The peloton, they're just through the feed zone in Mauriac. They're about to make the right-hand turn. Cadel's favourite cafe on many of his early season training rides, just off to the left-hand side. The Mitchelton Scott team, they're not worried about the solo breakaway. Jessica Allen is protecting Amanda Spratt at the front of the field.
Well, Mitchelton Scott need to pay a lot of attention here, because it's not just about where they're sitting in the field and what's coming. It's because their riders are going to be getting nervous. Amanda Spratt, she's very experienced, but when you're coming down to the business end of a bike race, you know you can win. It's natural to feel a bit of anxiety and to want to be in control and to want to make sure your teammates are there for you, to calm you, to get you anything that you may need. And if she should have a mechanical or a misadventure of sorts, that she will have someone to look after her.
Well, you just saw that last shot. So our leader might be nearly 2 minutes up the road, but they can see her clearly. It's now a long straight stretch.
This is Georgia Williams now, the Kiwi, who comes to the front, having a drink for the Mitchelton Scott team. Big Lucy Kennedy, she just puts her bidden back onto the bike. This is starting to get a little more serious for Mitchelton Scott.
Mitchelton Scott is now doing what everybody expected, taking control of the race, taking their responsibility. They've got the former winner in Amanda Spratt, the out-and-out favourite. All the other teams are looking at them to do the work. We often see that is the scenario with whatever the biggest Australian team is. If the race is in Australia, they're the ones who are under pressure to do the work. And we see the same in countries around the world. Would this be a race in Belgium? Then the biggest Belgian-based team would be expected to do the work. It's just sometimes unreasonable, but it's just the way it is.
Well, and from that end, Mitchelton Scott step up year after year, because every year in their existence they have been looked to as the major Australian team to take responsibility of the race, and they're never shy to do it. Amanda Spratt has won so many races, even with a giant target on her back, and she's proven again and again that the pressure just doesn't get to her at all. I mean, what an incredible quality in an athlete.
Well, it's very easy for the team to accept that responsibility, to shoulder that weight of the race when you know you've got such a favourite who can perform under pressure.
Well, Amanda Spratt, she has declared quite openly that she struggled with the pressure early, particularly heading into the London Olympics, and it was one of the biggest disappointments of her career. But as you often say to your kids in junior sport, you win some and you learn some. And she said from those Olympics, she learned a lot. And that disappointment of not coping with the pressure has made her a much better athlete now.
And we talk about the psychology of sports performance, and it is often the way that sports people sometimes think to themselves, what if I lose? Instead of thinking to themselves, what if I win?
And number 16, who you can see, the tail end from Mitchelton Scott, that's Grace Brown. She is the second option for Mitchelton Scott today. Amanda Spratt, she will attack. Grace Brown will follow the others. Of the climbers from the Mitchelton Scott team, she's the next fastest when it comes to sprinting, and she's a big chance to win. And you saw her in Adelaide. She was very good at the Tour Down Under.
Oh, look, I think Grace Brown is one of the most exciting young talents to come out of Australian cycling in a very long time. What makes me a bit nervous looking at her here is sitting right on the edge of the road like that, because she's getting squeezed and a tiny bit of a duck off into the dirt, and you can often lose control of your bike. It can go south very, very quickly. It shows a little bit of inexperience from Grace Brown, and she needs to look after herself.
We just saw a glimpse of Juan Antonio Fletcher on the back of the motorbike, checking the start list. Okay, Juan Antonio. Kate has given her prediction, so too has Robbie. I've put my skin in the game with Ruth Winder to win. Who do you think wins the race today?
I would go for someone with some experience, like Rachel Neyland. I mean, I saw her going very easy at the Bellspeech QOM, especially look at the front. His pedal stroke looked very well, and now immediately after Forest Road, she went back to she's riding nice and easy after the fit zone, and she's back at the front of the bunch. The reason why I'm saying that is because it's been very a nervous race at the beginning of the race with that wind, and despite now being a lot calm and the race being settled, I believe it's a race for someone with experience and someone that at the end will have safe energy, especially at the first part of the race.
All right, well, Juan Antonio has picked Rachel Neyland. Matt, you've gone with Winder. Kate, you're on Lepisto. I've picked Spratt, and nobody has gone with Chloe Hoskin, the defending champion. We saw her in the picture there, just almost next to Rachel Neyland, so she's going to pop up and make us all look silly.
Well, we're only given the opportunity to pick one rider in our defence, but there's a whole host of others who are contenders. Sarah Roy now, though, Kate, is starting to up the ante. This is Mitchelton Scott laying down the first stones of the foundation, potentially for victory.
It's hard to see, but they are going up quite an incline here, and the labouring that we're seeing from Sarah Roy really indicates how much power is going through those pedals. We can see that the field is being strung out 1 by 2. That's an indicator of the increased speed. This is where the riders really need to pay attention about their place in the bunch, and judging by the fact that the entire Mitchelton Scott team is up the front there must be some crosswinds, Robbie, because this is how you ride into a crosswind. Amanda Spratt, well, she's looking pretty comfortable and pretty safe amongst her teammate Chloe Hosking. She was tucked in just right behind them.
Well, certainly not enough wind to really make big splits in the peloton. You may see some of the weaker riders at the back have done some of the work, done some of the attacking, start to be under pressure. But any little uphill, and this is quite a drag through this section, I think Mitchelton Scott just want to put the race under pressure, make everybody work as hard as possible, because that is good for Amanda Spratt.
And for the first
few moments
time
ago, we saw a heart rate at 106. Well, that has spiked up quite a lot. 172 heart rate, 36k now uphill. Spratt also getting amongst it, doing a turn at the front. So this is a serious acceleration by the team, with the leader also getting involved.
And for the first time, we're seeing her under a bit of pressure. You can see the look on her face has changed from that cool and calm into a little bit more laboured. The breakaway still at 1:20 out, but I don't think this is where the bike race is. The bike race is back in that peloton with Mitchelton Scott accelerating and really taking responsibility. Single file that field. The speed is up.
Nicholas Thinginger from the B-Pink team at one moment it was 140. All of a sudden it's down to 115. Mitchelton Scott taking control at the front of the race. The LA Cipollini team, you can see the Japanese national champion, Yonamina. She sits just at the tail end. She's trying to protect Chloe Hosking, the defending champion. Trek Segafredo have plenty of riders represented. Longo Borghini is up there amongst it. But this is a real battle for the edge of the road.
It is, and the breeze is just coming in slightly from the right. It's not strong enough that it's going to force echelons, but it is putting a lot of riders under pressure. Look at them all on the side of the road, single file, so they're not picking up the maximum amount of slipstream. So they are having to make quite a big effort to stick with the pace of Mitchelton Scott. So this is really good for Amanda Spratt. It's starting to soften up the legs of the other riders and open them up to an attack later on when it does get hilly.
Kate, is this a sign that Amanda Spratt is perhaps concerned that the race has been too easy so far and this gives the sprinters a chance? Let's make it tough.
Well, so far we haven't seen a lot of the sprinters. They haven't been put under any pressure at all. Chloe Hosking, a lot of the shots we've seen of her, she's been almost freewheeling and just taking a very easy ride into things. We know she's on form because she did win those two first intermediate sprints. But Mitchelton Scott, well, they're looking after each other and they're working very well as a team here. Only one rider stands on the podium, but it's what the team does out on course that makes the difference, and gaps are starting to open. Is that the wind? Is that the pressure? It's a combination of both, I think, but the entire Mitchelton Scott team, they're protected up the front. Chloe Hosking sitting nicely in just behind them.
She is riding perfectly. Longo Borghini is the rider in the blue and white colours. Well, she has proven herself time and time again in the high mountains at races like the Giro Rosa, the Women's Tour of Italy, and she's riding smartly at the front.
Well, gaps are starting to open up, and even Sarah Roy, as she pulled off the front after doing that big turn of pace, she nearly dropped the wheel, and it was only that Yonamini jumped into that gap that it was able to stay together. But look at those gaps opening up at the back, Robbie. The pressure is really on.
Yeah, so we are seeing riders go out the back door. So not the big splits as, cause it to be a very small bunch. There's certainly riders going out the back of the peloton, those who've worked early, those who have been in breakaways or been amongst the sprints, but there are a number of riders finding it difficult at the back of the bunch. There goes another one. So like we say, the back door is open, they're disappearing out of it.
But this is significant because a teammate of Chloe Hosking,
this is Maria Apollonio,
and that reduces her workforce. There's now 5 in that main bunch. Chloe Hosking, well, she may have to look after herself at the business end of the race. Mitchelton Scott certainly pushing toward that finale, nearly into the final 25 kilometres. Sarah Roy on the left of screen, she's been doing a lot. Jessica Allen coming in to take a turn of pace, but they're not alone because Trek Segafredo are stepping up to do a bit of the work as well.
Well, it's the best defence to get amongst the team that are working on the any sort of crosswind, get in amongst it, and it's actually easier to do a turn rather than just try and sit on the edge of the road and pick up a tiny bit of slipstream.
26 kilometres remaining and the race has moved into its next phase. Our sole leader is not too far away. She's just holding on to a 26-second advantage.
The Deakin University Women's Elite Race is coming to a climax. They are closing in on Geelong and this incredible Chilambra Crescent climb. Beautiful parts of land. And they're on their way to Geelong, just 24 kilometres away, and they'll be hitting the outskirts very shortly. Now, before this, about 4,000 riders a few hours ago were out on the same course as part of the Swiss People's Ride from all sorts of backgrounds, from all over the country, indeed all over the world. And now Jackie Felgate caught up with a couple of familiar footy faces.
Two of the biggest names in the AFL, Geelong's Patrick Dangerfield and Melbourne's Max Gawn, both took part in the Swiss People's Ride this morning. Guys, who won?
I think I started ahead of him, and I don't think he ever made the gap back up. Max was changed by the time I finished, but that's okay, as you can see.
Now, how do the clubs feel about cycling as a fitness tool?
They can be good, they can be bad. I've got a bit of a history of doing my hamstring post-big ride, so I've got to sort of take it easy, hence why I chose the easier option today. But it was still pretty tough out there.
Yeah, it was. It was beautiful conditions for it, 26 degrees, but spending my time in Adelaide, we were coached pretty heavily by Charlie Walsh, who spent a lot of time in the Australian team, so pretty familiar with it.
So when you got back, what did you think? What do you think about the atmosphere down here? It's wonderful, isn't it? Like, it's a really important event for Geelong as a community.
Yeah, it's great for our community. As you said, 3,000 participants today. The weather's been perfect. We've been pretty blessed, I think.
I was actually a tad worried. I got booed out of Geelong last time I was here. Apparently I did a little dive in the forward 50 and no one really liked me that day, so I was a bit worried returning.
Reception was good today?
Not too bad.
We're all friends down here this afternoon. And Max, you've already changed. Paddy, you're still in the gear. Have you already had your massage? What's going on?
Yeah, I got a quick massage. When I finished, no one else was here because I won, so I just jumped straight on. I had 2 people on each leg.
The lines are full by the time I got here.
All right, thanks, guys. And, of course, you can catch the footy all live and free on Channel 7.
23 kilometres remaining in the Deakin University Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. This is Jessica Allen at the front for the Mitchelton Scott team, followed then by Georgia Williams. Lucy Kennedy is the next in line, protecting the former winner, Amanda Spratt. The blue and white colours are Trek Segafredo. They've got some cards to play, and Longo Borghini sitting in second position. She has not missed a beat in the crosswinds.
No, well, very experienced. She's not going to get caught out in a situation like this. She's too clever for that, too seasoned as well. We see Mitchelton Scott doing a lot of the work at the front, but certainly the other teams don't just get a free ride sitting on. We saw what happened on that last section. Riders going out the back, missing out in the crosswinds, even though it was very, very slight. Now the domestiques, they really earn their money at this point in the race. We're setting up for the big finale. You see the hills looming, fast downhill coming up as they approach Geelong. But there's danger all the way in. We've seen the race split over this next 5-6 kilometre section year after year.
Well, the riders need to be very careful on those descents as well, because they do run into the climbs and riders will be jostling for position. How you hit the bottom of Chilambra is often quite indicative of how you hit the top. Mitchelton Scott will be wanting to look after Amanda Spratt and Grace Brown quite well. Trek Segafredo, they are grouping toward the front. They've got a number of riders who can make a big impact out there today. In fact, my favourite, Lotto Lepista, Ruth Winder, they have a couple of different options.
The rider in the white colours from the Quarterment, the real estate national team, that is Ruby Roseman Gannon, protecting Rachel Nayland. The under-23 Criterium champion of Australia, she is just quietly going about her business. She doesn't get as much attention as some of the others of her generation, but she's one we'll be talking about for a long time to come.
We haven't seen Jamie Gunning from Specialised Women's Racing yet, but she was on fire at the Tour Down Under. We can expect to see her head pop up soon. She said before the race she wanted to follow Amanda Spratt up Chilambra. Well, I said to her, everybody probably will be. That'll be the busiest wheel in the bunch. But certainly Rachel Nayland would be another great wheel to follow up there. She has won here before. She's on great form, and that climb is really where she will make her move.
Tactically, it sounds logical, but you need tactics that your body is able to deliver on. And following Amanda Spratt sounds good on paper, really difficult to actually deliver. This is Loretta Hansen out the front, doing the job for Trek Segafredo. She knows that she won't cope with the climbs, so she's sacrificing herself before that dip and then onto the quick succession of 3 really tough climbs.
And Sarah Roy's made her way back to the front. She has done the lion's share of the work for Mitchelton Scott in these last 10 kilometres where the speed has really increased. CCC Liv, they're starting to move toward the front. Ashley Moulman-Passio, she's an incredible climber, a former South African champion. And she came to Australia to work through her form and to train into it, and she certainly has come here today with a mission.
She abandoned the Tour Down Under. She got ill throughout that race, but her form looks pretty good at this point. She's very comfortable. Got a good team around her for these conditions.
Well, they're now on that very fast downhill. It loops around to the left, back to the right, and it's quite a long drag of a climb. We've often seen this race split apart in the first really big attacks that just explode the bunch.
if you're in this peloton without any teammates to help you get to the front, it can feel like a really lonely place.
Well, and that's where you kind of have to make yourself a pseudo member of another team. So if you are out there and you don't have any teammates who really can look after you really at the pointy end of this race, you just attach onto a rider who you think can help you. And I think that's why so many people will be fighting for Amanda Spratt's wheel. Sarah Roy, look at the grimace on her face as she comes down the descent. She is working hard because the higher the speed keeps, the less chance there is of an attack. Mitchelton Scott, they don't want an attack before that climb. They want to allow Amanda Spratt to do her thing and take the lead over Chilambra Crescent, but they are going to have to keep the speed high in order to make that happen. And Trek Segafredo, the blue and white, interspersed with the colours of the yellow and black of Mitchelton Scott, both taking responsibility, both proving that they have something they are chasing here today, and that is the victory.
That's Jessica Allen with the yellow shoes. She's all in. She swings off. She is done. It's now Williams, followed then by Spratt. There are 3 climbs to come, and on the first of those times, it was where Amanda Spratt launched her bid. There's a mechanical problem for the defending champion, Chloe Hosking.
Well, the chain is off and jammed for Chloe Hosking. This would have to be the end of her race. She can't repair it herself. She can't get the chain on. She'll have to wait for the team car to come, and that is frustration.
The body language says it all, Robbie. I think it was almost throw of hands in the air because it could not have been worse timing.
No, well, changing it. Here's the change of the bike. She's going to get pushed back on, but to be able to rejoin, this will be near impossible. They're on that long climb up, and we've seen the actions of Mitchelton Scott. One rider left in front of Amanda Spratt. That tells me she is going to go here, make the race really hard. If Hosking can get back, it'll be amazing if she can, but it'll also, I think, be the first big nail in the coffin because there are still more climbs to come. Really hard task
it's
for her to get
just terrible timing because to use all of this energy, if she does get back on Robbie, they're about to go up Chilambra. I mean, there could not have been worse timing for poor Chloe because she's proven by winning those first 2 sprints that she does have good legs today. I guess that's one of the things about bike racing. Anything can happen, you just never know, but a very badly timed mechanical for Chloe Hosking. One of her teammates has waited to drag her back up.
This is Qualiotto who's waited for her, so we're talking about her as being a good climber. Probably the only one left who can help Hosking at this point. As Mitchelton Scott, they drive it on as they go further onto this climb, the climb before the climbs. And this is a really hard moment in the race, and Chloe Hosking, well, I think that is going to be day done.
This is now Grace Brown at the front. Next to come through number 15, that's Lucy Kennedy. And the team gave the impression that Grace Brown would be plan B. I think they were all in on plan A with Amanda Spratt. If Grace Brown was to be a serious plan B, she wouldn't be spending this much energy now, surely. Kennedy, though, does take over to protect Brown, and she is an outstanding climber, Lucy Kennedy.
That's why a sack in third wheel behind the Mitchelton Scott riders. There's Amanda Spratt.
Longo Borghini, the Trek Segafredo rider, sitting pretty comfortably in there, just tucked in behind Chloe Hosking, grabbing a water bottle from the car, back in the field, but it looks like there's been another mechanical further up and the caravan is stopped behind that.
That's a crash. Straightening the handlebars on the left-hand side of the road, so there's been a crash further up. It's stopped a number of riders and the convoy. Maybe a chance for Hosking to get back, make contact with that convoy, maybe be able to make her way back across in time for the climb of Chilambra. Number 51, though, been caught out here as Annette Barrera.
Regardless of whether Hosking does make it back or not, and she's on her way, the energy spent here surely costs her in the end.
Oh, it's going to be very difficult for her to hit the back of the peloton and then head straight up Chilambra. She does, once she gets in the convoy, she can save a little bit of energy ducking between the cars, but there is quite a significant gap as those cars accelerate back up to the front, to the back of the field. Mitchelton Scott putting in all the effort, Grace Brown on the front, Lucy Kennedy tucked in behind Amanda Spratt. Longo Borghini, and your pick, number 26, Matthew Keenan. You have to be happy with that, Ruth Winder. But Rachel Nayland, she's tucked in and looking comfortable too, with Emily Roper sitting tightly on her wheel. CCC Liv, Ashley Moorman-Passio, she doesn't even look to be breathing yet, Robbie. She's a great climber.
All the favourites at the front.
1, 2, 3, Longo Borghini. She sits on the wheel of Spratt. Number 15, this is Kennedy. It's Brown at the front who is sacrificing her chances, and she was an outside contender. 126 is Winder. 24, Mormon Passio. She's the South African who has a big chance, and you can see the power output. They are big numbers, and she does not look comfortable, but she is still there. Next in line, you can just see the white gloves poking in. That is Rachel Neylan, who won this race in 2015.
But the difference 100 metre makes. 100 metres ago, both Mormon Passio and Neylan looked quite comfortable. As we panned back to them, we started to see the grimace. Chloe Hosking doesn't look like she's going to make contact at this point. She has gotten back to a car, but she's only hitting the back end of that bunch, and that is a long way away.
That's her own team car who's hung back to give her some moral support, maybe a little bit of slipstreaming, but not really allowed. But look at the big gaps between cars, the gaps in the field with riders now being dropped under the pressure of Mitchelton Scott.
And you can see that first red car, that's one of the commissaires, the umpires in cycling. There was a second red car that was dropping back to where Chloe Hosking was to make sure that any chase is a clean chase.
Yeah, and I don't think the chase is going to be enough because the pressure is so immense at the front of the field. Looking back at that convoy, the commissaire's car, keeping an eye that everything is happening above board, and riders being distanced, but they're nearly at the top of this climb now. They go across the plateau. The wind will hit them again from the right before they take that super fast descent into the streets of Geelong, and then in front of them will loom Chalambra Crescent.
Well, it may be all over for Chloe Hosking at the back, but Mitchelton Scott, well, they are still at the front and charging away. Lucy Kennedy leading the pace. Amanda Spratt tucked in behind her. Nobody is looking that comfortable anymore. The grimaces are on the face. You can see the laboured efforts as they come into this final kilometres toward that climb up Chalambra. Amanda Spratt, well, she comes in as the favourite, but 175 beats per minute. She is not doing it easy. 188 watts. Well, that just shows that the pedals, she's backed off the pedals a bit going over the top of the climb, but the heart rate hasn't dropped yet. And with Lucy Kennedy really driving the way we don't expect it to, everybody else on a wheel, they're going to be hurting too.
The white colours for the Quarterment, the real estate team. The first in line is Rachel Neylan. Just behind her, Robbie, the woman you've spoken about, Emily Roper, the Queenslander. Cardinia Park off in the distance, the finish line right in the heart of Geelong on the waterfront. The most decisive part of the race is just about upon us.
And that's the beauty of this race too. You never know which is going to be the most decisive section. Where they are now, look how open exposed is across the top of the ridge, and a lot of riders been dropped off, so this peloton is now just a leading front group. A few riders trying to claw their way back, a group of 12 or 15 trying to close that gap down. But Mitchelton Scott, they have got this race by the scruff of the neck.
Grace Brown, you can see the bandages that she's got on. That was an unfortunate training fall. She had a stage win at the recent Tour Down Under, and her boyfriend wasn't too happy with the victory celebration, so he suggested they go out training and practice the victory celebration. Well, she crashed in the process. Plenty of spectators on the side of the road. Looks like they've got the cricket stumps out.
Happy Australia Day.
There's been a break in play. Brown at the front, followed by Kennedy, then Spratz.
15.5 kilometres to go. The wind kicking up in this section to 20 kilometres an hour. Not super strong, but with that climb in their legs, the pace that's been on, just the slightest little bit of extra effort required is enough to break the peloton into smithereens. Riders just disappearing out the back of the groups. This is a group trying to get themselves back on terms with the front of the race.
What is notable, lots of orange colours of CCC, the teammates of Mormon Passio in the second group. So she is a little isolated. She's got one or two teammates there.
Well, and also led by Taylor Wiles. She was chasing the head of that chase group. Trek Segafredo, they do need numbers if they are to challenge Mitchelton Scott. But Longo Borghini and Winder, they're looking pretty comfortable. Lepisto, we haven't seen her in that front group. We expect her to be there, but she's certainly not in that front couple of riders. And Longo Borghini, well, I tell you what, she has a heck of a resume. She has won World Cups. The Trofeo Albeida Binder, that is one of the races, one of the hardest one-day races on the women's calendar, and she's won that. It comes in the early spring. She's looking for a bit of motivation heading into that, and she's looking pretty comfortable.
The race is splitting to pieces. The peloton is heading for Geelong.
And we have some of the fastest and steepest segments still to come. Stay with us. We're back with more right after this. if you talk to any of these riders, Chilamba Crescent scares the daylights out of them. So we went to one of the strongest climbers in the field, Ashley Moorman-Passio, to find out what it takes to be a Queen of the Mountain on the World Tour.
It's important to get to know your bike, to know how to move it and to use it to your advantage, like getting out of your saddle and throwing the bike also definitely helps in terms of, you know, creating that forward momentum. So if you're a climber that's better on less steep climbs, then it would mean using the less steep parts to your advantage. But if you're a climber that's good on steep parts, it's about using the steeper parts of the climb. And so for me, it's all about the steep parts.
Just inside 11 kilometres remaining in the Deakin University Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. What started as a peloton of 90 is reduced to less than 30. They're approaching Chilamba Crescents, maximum gradient of 22%. The climbers here are desperate to get rid of any of the sprinters that remain. One who isn't in contention because of mechanical problem, unfortunately, is last year's winner, Chloe Hosking.
And I very much doubt we'll see her get back to the front of the peloton. What's left where the peloton goes through this point in this roundabout, they're about to turn on to the steepest parts of this climb.
This is Moorman-Passio, the South African, followed then by Sprats, Longo Borghini, Jamie Gunning is amongst them, so too Brodie Chapman. It's business time.
Well, the field isn't stringing out how I imagined. Ashley Moorman-Passio is really, she's taking the scruff of the neck here. Longo Borghini just filling that gap for Amanda Spratt. But the field is actually quite big. There's a lot of riders where if they can even sniff the front of the bike race going over the top here, it is certainly not over. Amanda Spratt, she is looking quite laboured sitting there in third wheel. I've got to say, Moorman-Passio is looking the most comfortable so far at the front. Amanda Spratt, we don't often see her in trouble. I'm not sure we'd say she's in trouble just yet, but Longo Borghini and Moorman-Passio certainly looking in control. Small gap opening back up to Spratt, so she's certainly laboured, but the gaps are starting to open up.
The three best climbers emerging at the front, and it's the South African, Moorman-Passio, who's causing all the damage.
She's doing the damage. Brodie Chapman, she is coming back across that gap. She was with them initially, gapped off, and that's the nature of this climb. It goes very steep, it eases off slightly, and the end of it, where it goes up around to the left.
Lucy Kennedy is coming across. She's the next in line for Mitchelton Scott. She's almost there. The black helmet just poking into the pitch of Brodie Chapman. Moorman-Passio taking full responsibility, and they're just approaching the steep part.
Well, Lucy Kennedy, we saw her doing all that work on the approach to the climb and that last descent, and now getting herself back towards the front of the race. She's an excellent climber, Chapman, and she will be a great ally for Amanda Spratt up at the front. Power in numbers. If they can have two in a group of six, they're in a very, very strong position.
Only a couple of 100 metres left on this climb, 200 metres to go, still led by Moorman-Passio, but she is turning around and easing off the pace a little bit. She looked over her shoulder there as if to assess the damage that she's causing. Longo Borghini, a small gap opening up, Amanda Spratt tucked in behind, and then a bit of a gap. But the bunch, well, they're not too far away. Lucy Kennedy, the next on the road.
She is causing damage. The gap is opening. It's not huge. Moorman-Passio leading to the top of the climb. There'll be points in the race for the Subaru King of the Mountains classification, but that is not the ambition. Now Longo Borghini in the blue colours. She's under serious pressure, clawing her way to the top. The camera does do it justice. It's like a wall. Spratt is trying to bridge the gap. Kennedy is sticking with them, and Chapman has made contact.
Brodie Chapman not only made contact, she's going to come up and over the top. It's Chapman first across the top. She takes the QM. Moorman-Passio, Spratt, Kennedy, Longo Borghini, and the gap back to the rest, and the field is absolutely splintered.
Mitchelton Scott, they've got the numbers here. They've got both Spratt and Kennedy in that front group, and they need to work together because CCC Live, they've only got Moorman-Passio, and they are on the hunt. Brodie Chapman, she took those QOM points. What a brilliant last 100 metres of that climb for her to claw that back. She does have a small gap. She's going with it. The riders behind, well, this is not the time to sit up and hesitate.
Here's another look at the climb. She chased the whole way up in the black colours for the Tipco team. Brodie Chapman just poaching the points at the top ahead of Moolman Passio.
Well, what it tells us is she judged her effort to perfection. So letting yourself get gapped off a little bit, but coming back over the top and then pushing on across the top of the climb and onto the descent. It's Spratt who closes the gap, and look at the gaps forming between the rest.
And Spratt making no mistakes, making sure she's quickly across to Chapman. 1 year ago in the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, it was Brodie Chapman attacked over the top of the climb, and the time trial world champion Annemiek van Vleuten wasn't able to close it down. Mitchelton Scott, once bitten, twice shy, paying full respect to Chapman.
Spratt looks back, see what the rest are doing, also see where her teammate Lucy Kennedy is. She would like her to come to the front, I would think, to do some work again. She's offered herself up until this point to help split the peloton, drive it down to the foot of the climb to put Spratt in position. Lucy Kennedy, she will be an excellent ally now for Spratt.
Well, they're in prime position, Mitchelton Scott, but they do need to do a bit more work than the other riders in order to keep this going. That is the responsibility of having the numbers game in the break. It's expected to see Amanda Spratt up there. She's doing a tremendous job, but Brodie Chapman, she's certainly not backing off on the descent.
And one of the Astana riders, Arlena Sierra, the Cuban, has made it across into this group as well.
Now, she's a handy sprinter. We saw her at Tour Down Under go top 3 in some sprint stages. In the first stage, she was 3rd over the line. She is a handy sprinter, and I would not like to be dragging her to the finish. But she's not that well known, and I do wonder if right now there's some team directors scrambling through the numbers and hitting Wikipedia to figure out what Sienna may have done.
Well, the 26-year-old, she's sitting at the back. Most of her races have been won in Central and South America. She was good as well on Thursday in Towards Zero Race Melbourne, contesting the intermediate sprints there. She is a fast finisher. The rest of these are generally renowned climbers as Lucy Kennedy leads them across the bridge for the next climb.
Well, the narrow bridge is going to bring them onto that next little climb we spoke about earlier. This first section just drags up steadily, gets steeper and steeper, then they turn left and it kicks up to around 20%. Kennedy is now back on the front, so increasing the pace, keeping the pressure on. They've opened the gap over Chilambra. This is the chasing group now across the bridge.
And the Astana rider, she is really dangerous. She won a pancake flat stage last year in the Tour of California. Here are the chasers. Rachel Naylor. At the front, it's Emily Roper. 1-4-3, Jamie Gunning. And Kennedy at the front. Moolman Passio, she's wise to that move by Spratt. Shoulder to shoulder as they make their way up the final climb.
Well, she just matched the attack. Spratt went to go, and the anticipation of Moolman Passio. Now they hit that really steep section. This is where it really hurts. Moolman Passio, she had the upper hand on Chilambra. Can she go again here? And look at the Cuban from the Astana team.
Sierra. This is Kennedy. Longo Borghini is labouring. Chapman is paying the price for the previous climb.
Well, she's paying a price at the moment, but the intensity is so high on this climb. Maybe she's playing it smart, just gapping off a little bit and maybe able to ride back to them on the flat section. They're crest to the top of the climb, and it's now Kennedy. Perfect move of a teammate when you've got two. Go on the attack. Now Spratt can sit back and say, you girls chase.
And she is a strong time trialist. She's been a medalist at the Australian Championships in the individual time trial.
Presence of mind, shortcut.
Taking the shortest run home. Kennedy is in with a big chance.
6.2 kilometres to go, one climb to go as well. There's another steep little kick around the back of this circuit in the outskirts of Geelong. Kennedy with 6 kilometres to go is opening up the gap.
What she has to her advantage is she's fully committed. Her speed will be consistent. And amongst the chasers is her teammate Amanda Spratt, and that will discourage the others. Nobody wants to drag Amanda Spratt to the finish, but Sierra, the Cuban, she's not dragging anybody. She comes across on her own.
What a ride from Sierra. She's come from the background on Chilambra, got back to that front group, and not just going to sit and be used as a workhorse for Amanda Spratt. She's jumped the gap, and now effectively in this situation Spratt almost becomes a teammate of Sierra because she's not going to chase this gap down.
Kennedy will not want to take Sierra to the finish line.
No, and that may be the message that comes through now to Lucy Kennedy. Do not work with Sierra. let her do the most of the work, and if you get the opportunity, attack over the top on the next hill. But we'd rather have Amanda Spratt come back and go on the attack.
She's a triple Pan American champion. She's been a stage winner in a sprint finish at the Tour of California. Cat and mouse starts. The Mitchelton Scott team, they doubt the ability of Kennedy to win that sprint in a 2-up finish.
So Sierra, she swung across and she looked for Kennedy to come through. She is on the front now, but look at the way she's pedalling. That's not a turn of pace on the front. That's actually slowing Sierra down.
And the conversation, she's getting instructions at this point from the team car, and she wants clarification.
No, she is just riding there, waiting for Amanda Spratt. So the more she's on the front, the more she can slow Sierra down. Sierra now realises that, goes through to the front, and this is with full commitment now. Arlena Sierra, the Cuban from Astana, and she's putting Kennedy under some real pressure.
Phenomenal riding. Arlena Sierra, she is committing. And rightly so. She fancies herself in a 2-up sprint against Kennedy. So she should. Now Spratt, she has the opportunity to sit on the others doing the chasing. Chapman has rejoined the orange colours. That's Moolman Passio. And now in the second position is Longo Borghini.
Well, the other three riders that Spratt is now covering at the back, they don't want to give her a free ride across, but they also must realise that the race is lost if they don't close this down. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. They've got to go.
Number 11, Amanda Spratt, silver medalist from the World Championships 1 year ago. She has her teammate Lucy Kennedy out in front, but she's out in front with Arlena Sierra, a Cuban who is a really fast sprinter. And we are seeing lots of conversation on race radio with Spratt and Kennedy back to their team car. The gap at 13 seconds, though, the front two, they're building their lead.
And well,
Sierra on her own.
Sierra. Well, out of that corner, it looks like she just opened the gap back to Kennedy, who is now out of the wheel on the radio. This is a dire situation now for Mitchelton Scott. Sierra is away alone. She's tucked down. She's went the aero position just briefly there. Looks back at the, how on earth did I get rid of Kennedy? She's got to go all in now.
It's a time trial now for the Cuban, as Kennedy, she has to wait. She can't chase on her own. She's not going to get back across on her own. She has to wait for Spratt and work with that other group if they are to win the race.
Well, there's Kennedy. She is out of the wheel. She's not getting back across to Sierra, and at this moment she's not helping Amanda Spratt either. A decision must be made very quickly. Sit up and chase hard, or try and get back, and the gap now is enormous.
Arlena Sierra is in the box seat to win this race solo, and she's the quickest of the sprinters amongst the leaders on the road. Phenomenal performance. Chapman at the front, Longo Borghini in second position, Moolman Passio in the orange, Spratt sitting at the rear.
Well, Spratt's sitting at the back, but she can now see that her teammate Kennedy is no longer at the front of the race with Sierra, and they have put themselves under enormous pressure, and the others will now look at the Mitchelton Scott duo to do all the chasing. Kennedy trying to come back. The gap is too big. She will not get back to the wheel of Sierra.
Now Amanda Spratt attacks. She has to go. Longo Borghini responds. Then Moolman Passio. Chapman digging deep into the well, desperately trying to stay on the wheel. Spratt with a look across the shoulders, seeing what sort of a gap she's created. But the race is out in front with Arlena Sierra from the Astana squad.
Well, the gap is there, and it's panic stations behind Spratt as now Moolman Passio takes over from Longo Borghini, but she is losing the wheel as well. Chapman is 6-7 lengths off as well, and if Spratt can get to the wheel of Kennedy and get off at a quick turn of pace, she may be in with a chance, but I think it's too little too late. I think that Sierra has flown the coop. She's on the downhill from the bridge. She'll come to the roundabout, turn right, and it's all along the waterfront to the finish line. What an incredible move by the Cuban from the Astana team. Caught on over the top of Chalambra Crescent, rejoined the group, marked the move perfectly of Kennedy, and simply rode her out of the wheel through that right-hand corner. And she must have thought, how on earth did I get rid of Kennedy, who was sitting on my wheel?
Water bottles are gone for Sierra. She makes the right-hand turn onto the Esplanade. Kennedy and Spratt are chasing, but they're not together. It's one-on-one.
Spratt was on the radio. That will be to Kennedy to wait and try and work together. The chase, 18 seconds. That's back to Lucy Kennedy with just 1.5 kilometres to go. And I think right here we are now looking at the winner of the Deakin University Women's Cadel Road Race, because The Mitchelton Scott riders are coming together, but the race is going away in the distance.
17 seconds. Kennedy is waiting, but she waited too long to wait. And now the two riders from Mitchelton Scott getting themselves together, racing for spots on the podium, because Alina Sierra is putting in the ride of her life.
Well, Sierra, just how incredibly powerful to survive on the climb, get across the gap, and then just mark the moves to perfection. And we'll have to ask Kennedy how on earth did that happen, that she wasn't able to follow the wheel. The Mitchelton Scott riders now together. If they had 5 kilometres up their sleeve, they may get the job done. 1K to go with 18 seconds. It's a done deal. Number 36 here. This is Alina Sierra, the Cuban from Astana. She is riding towards the win. Time trial position, looking in full control, and that she is.
It is her 3rd season with the Astana squad. She's won loads of races in Central America and South America. Now the rider from Cuba is on target for the biggest victory of her career. From winning sprint finishes at the Tour of California last year, she has ridden the best climbers in the world out of her wheel.
Well, quite an incredible performance. 16 seconds the gap, so they're starting to narrow that down. But she's coming into sight of our fixed cameras now, well within the last kilometre on the right side. Finish 400 metres. She is just approaching that now. The road starts to dip away, and in the distance, the Mitchelton Scott pairing. Sierra is on the road to victory.
They will see her cross the line, eventually with her arms in the air. Sierra takes a little look across the shoulder, but she doesn't dare to ease up. The 26-year-old for the Astana team is on target to win the 5th edition of the Deakin University Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. The Colombian has smoked them. Convincing win for Sierra. The race is now on for the minor placings. The teammates from Mitchelton Scott, Kennedy and Spratt will debrief, asking the question what went wrong, but today Sierra was simply too good. This is Kennedy leading them across the line. Spratt's in 3rd position today. 19 seconds the gap.
A shake of the hands, but quite possibly both of them in disbelief. The sprint now for 4th. Longo Borghini, Passio, Mollman, Passio and Borghini. Photo for 4th. Brodie Chapman. And this is Rachel Neyland chasing in, almost there for the former winner.
Another top 10 finish for her. Sierra being chased. Now the sprint for the minor placings. Grace Brown is in there amongst it, slipping through the middle. Ruth Winder
Emily
and
Roper.
Emily Roper in the white colours.
Well, quite a group coming together for what was left of the top 10 positions, but absolutely no doubt about our winner. Clearly the strongest and the smartest. Sierra, what an incredible ride.
She takes the win ahead of Lucy Kennedy, then Amanda Spratt. It was Longo Borghini, then Mollman Passio. Chapman was the next best. Neyland coming in on her own. It was Alison Jackson who led on the rest of the peloton.
Congratulations.
Well done job. Okay. Huge win for the Cuban. Takes out a massive victory. And the team, they join in with the celebrations. Amanda Spratt showing her class pretty quickly over to congratulate her. And this looks like it might be Chloe Hosking leading home the next bunch for a sprint. It is Chloe Hosking.
That is sprinting out the frustration. Terrible luck there for Chloe Hosking, a jammed chain on the approach to Geelong in the final part of the race when there was so much pressure on from Mitchelton Scott. Last year's winner. She comes in, I would say, outside the top 30 today.
Let's head down to Kate Bates with the race winner.
Spratty, you guys did an absolutely outstanding job out there. Mitchelton Scott, 2nd and 3rd though. Sierra just snuck away at the finish.
Yeah, actually, Sierra had a great race. She also got World Tour podiums last year, so we know she's a great rider, and all credit to her. I think my team rode really amazing and set up Lucy and I there in the end to have a go.
How much pressure did you feel coming in? Because from the very start of the race, Mitchelton Scott were the people who everyone was looking at for the win.
Yeah, I think we felt a fair amount of pressure. We could see that we had to take a lot of responsibility whether we wanted to or not, and yeah, we took the race like we could in the last sort of 30k and tried to make it as hard as possible.
And there are a lot of attacks out there today, especially from B Pink. At any time did you guys feel a little bit nervous about what was going on?
We were monitoring it, put it that way. It's a bit of an unpredictable course, so you do have to be careful, but I felt like we had it under control the whole time.
Well, an amazing teamwork. Lucy, you really stepped up today. Those final couple of kilometres, they sure challenged you all the way to the line.
Oh, yeah, those last 25k were really, really hard. I was really looking forward to it, actually. I could tell from the beginning that I had good legs, and the team rode so strongly there to set it up, and the Astana was super strong, and unfortunately we couldn't quite get there.
You guys came in as favourites. I know that puts a bit of pressure on you, but it must also give you some confidence.
Yeah, definitely. There's pros and cons to being the team that everyone looks to. Sure, they're expecting us to make that final hard, and that's what we did. We just couldn't quite pull off the win.
Well, we're used to seeing you guys on the top step today, second and third, but congratulations, well ridden.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Amanda Spratt and Lucy Kennedy, but it was the Cuban, Alina Sierra, who got the job done convincingly.
Well, she just had that clear run all the way in through those final 4 or so kilometres and could practice the victory salute in her mind. Get it right for the finish line and make sure she gets a very nice photo to put on the wall from the Deakin University Cadel Evans Road Race. The Cuban, what an incredible ride.
And clearly Lucy Kennedy wasn't too sure who she was, as she just referred to as the Astana rider. She knows now.
Well, there'll be no doubt about that. And a huge win for the Astana team and for Alina Sierra.
Told of it. Alina Sierra from Cuba takes the honours today. A magnificent ride by her. She just left them behind in the final few kilometres of courageous performance. And a big crowd on hand to congratulate and enjoy this finish. Finishing in second, the two Mitchelton Scott riders. Lucy Kennedy was second. Amanda Spratt finished in third place. So a beautiful day in Geelong. Temperature about 26 degrees. As you can see, the city by the bay is looking pristine today. Coronado Bay, the Royal Geelong Yacht Club you see there, and just to the right of that, our finish line and competitor area. And a magnificent day out on the road. Don't forget too, we've got the Cadel Evans Road Race coming up tomorrow. The men will be out on the road. A big day for them as well. Conditions expected to be similar, and we're looking forward to that. But right now, it is presentation time. So let's get down and join the podium presentation.
For Alina Sierra and the Astana women's team, it is time for them to celebrate. Their trip down under has been a successful one.
That it has, and although she's quite a new name to us, and this would be the biggest win of her career, she is a proven winner, a 2-time winner of the International Women's Tour of Costa Rica, Alina Sierra.
And confirmation of the win ahead of Kennedy and Spratt coming across the line together at 19 seconds behind. It was then Millman, Passio, Borghini, Longo Borghini and Chapman. Then it was Rachel Nayland coming in on her own, a former winner of this race. Emily Roper, an outstanding performance. Ruth Winder in 9th, and Grace Brown, also from the Mitchelton Scott team, as per Kennedy and Spratt, rounding out the top 10. They had the strength in numbers, but it was Sierra who was just too good today.
Well, she was too good uphill. She was too good tactically, and she was just too good in the corners as well. She's too good everywhere, and what a fantastic win. And I like the fact that when Kennedy went to sit in the wheel, she said, all right, you do that. I'm just going to ride because I got you covered in a sprint. And when she lost the wheel through that corner, well, she said, well, that's it. I've got you.
Mitchelton Scott rider, that is Sarah Roy. Just behind her was Sarah Gigante. These are some of the people that participated amongst 4,000 other riders in the Swiss People's Ride earlier on today. That's Jessica Allen. It's a reserved smile from Jessica Allen. She sacrificed all of her chances today and did a lot of work, particularly on the approach to Geelong. She tried desperately to make life hard. Sarah Gigante signed a few autographs, the 18-year-old, who in addition to being a brilliant athlete, in her final year at school, doing her VCE, whilst also representing Australia at the Junior World Championships, she got the perfect score of 99.95. One of the first strategic points of the race today was into Barwon Heads for the Map sprint classification, where we saw Chloe Hosking make it pretty clear early on that she had good legs.
Well, she was the defending champion of the race overall, but also the defending champion in the sprint classification from last year. And she started off in the same vein, taking first across the line in front of Barbieri, also Williams, and then they caught Barbieri, who went on a lone attack. And as they entered the streets of Torquay, well, the lead out from the Ale Cipollini team for Chloe Hosking, it brought her to the front. She made a short acceleration, checked over the shoulder, eased off on the pedals, rolled across the line first in front of the two riders of Mitchelton Scott, Williams and Jessica Allen, and effectively that won her the competition. This, the winning move of the race. She made so many good moves, but when she got the opportunity, she had Kennedy a few lengths out of the wheel, it was all over.
And it looks like such a simple right-hand turn, but Sierra went through it so quickly. Kennedy was distanced, and the next time they saw each other was after the finish line as the Cuban collected the biggest victory of her young career.
Well, that does see Chloe Hosking run out as winner of the sprint competition, having won 2 of the sprints out of the 3. The finish line was the final one, counting for points. And at the Queen of the Mountain, the Subaru Queen of the Mountain, out on course as they left Bells Beach. Well, they were just catching the breakaway of Valsecchi from the Beat Pink team, and as they approached the top, it was Double Hiko who just ran out the winner, Rally UHC rider. Look at the distance she's putting between herself and the rest. It was Rodriguez Gutierrez from Astana who took second there, and Payne, the New Zealand rider, across the line in third, but a clear win there.
And then they got onto the climb of Chalamba. It was Mulman Pasio who was leading the charge, but just as it looked as if Brodie Chapman was being distanced, she fought, she clawed her way back on, and just as they crested the top of the climb, it was Brodie Chapman over the top, collecting 5 points in the race for the Subaru Queen of the Mountains classification. There she is in the black colours. She's not on yet, still with 25 metres to go, and she just gets there. Timing. Chapman paid the price for that effort, though, later on the next climb.
Yeah, it did really hurt her, but she took the KOM, the QOM there. And that is a great place to be this afternoon. Fantastic weather conditions here in Geelong. A great ad for the whole surf coast and the Corio Bay.
And that is Ritchie Boulevard, where there was a bike race held there earlier on in the year for the Bay Cycling Classic. The finish line itself for today's race just past the big Ferris wheel, and the Yacht Club hosting its famous sailing event throughout this weekend as well. Plenty